Morning, SMITE fans, and welcome back to another day of the Phase 3 playoffs here in Season 8 of the SMITE Pro League, powered by our good friends over at Alienware. Make sure that you check them out on their social media at Alienware on Twitter and Instagram. Check out smitegame.com/Alienware to see all the cool gear that our pros are playing on here in the studio, because we got all of them going to be in studio, not just yesterday, not just today, but even tomorrow. All sets can be played in studio on those Alienware machines, so make sure you check them out. Use code SMITEAW. Get yourself some cool discounts and see all the cool things happening over at Alienware. Thank you one more time, Alienware, for being the title sponsor of Season 8 of the SMITE Pro League. It's day 2 of the playoffs. It's semifinals. We still have some more eliminations going through today, but most importantly, aggro. We got some teams that can be going to Worlds if they can get some wins today.
And not just 2 Worlds to the quarterfinals or anything like that. These teams are going to the semifinals if they win today. So this is a huge matchup. Should be a ton of fun. I mean, the Jade Dragons obviously looked absolutely fantastic yesterday, but the Tartarus Titans have looked like the best team in the league recently. So I have no idea what's going to happen, and I'm super excited to see what happens.
Yeah, we got some big sets on the line here. Semifinals all day long, best of 5s all day long here in these semifinal matchups. First one up is the Tartarus Titans and the Jade Dragons after their 3-0 against the Bolts yesterday. The Camelot Kings will face off with the Atlantis Leviathans after their 3-2 bloodbath up against the Solar Scarabs in that second match yesterday. Now, obviously, the winner of those move on to the finals tomorrow. As you can see on the bracket, the loser of these ones, well, they go home. They're out of the competition for here. As you said, man, getting to go straight up towards those semifinals at World is such a huge prize for these teams.
Absolutely a massive advantage. It means that you are simply 6 games away from winning the SMITE World Championship. You just got to win 1 best of 5 and then a second best of 5. And, okay, yeah, it's at Worlds, and so that's going to be difficult. But overall, a huge advantage for these teams to be able to win this. So I'm very excited to see what's going to happen.
And not just that, I mean, now you don't have to worry about playing in December where all of these teams have to fight one more time next month in order to try and get a spot there at the Worlds. And the 2 teams to start it out here, Jade Dragons and the Tartarus Titans. Let's talk a little bit about the Titans because, I mean, what hasn't been said about these guys just between us, between the fans, and everybody at home? I mean, this is one of the most unstoppable teams that we have seen in the league. Some of the most impressive KDAs specifically coming out of this team. Paul, I mean, in 10 games during the group stage, Paul died 8 times as a mid laner. The literal central focus on the map died 8 times for this team during 10 games of play.
And if that's going to happen, then you're going to win. Like, it's pretty simple, basically, for how this team operates. But it's not just Paul. It's been Layers. It's been Cyclone. It's been Aurora. It's been Benji. All 5 members have looked phenomenal recently, and there's a big reason why I think a lot of people are favoring them coming into this.
And not just us at home, or us who think it's great. I mean, we do. We have a lot of thoughts about them. So let's go ahead and roll our caster thoughts to see what we think about the Tartarus Titans moving into this playoff. Man, the Tartarus Titans just kind of exploded ever since they put Layers on this team. Phase 3 playoffs, they come through after being like the number 5 seed, and then the Titans end up winning the Phase 2 playoffs. And in Phase 3, they've looked even better.
Think back to Phase 1. We're assuming that this team, with Scary D at the time, was going to be this powerhouse team. They're going to come out of the gate swinging. It's been anything but. Some roster swaps happen. Layers joins in the jungle. And this team looks so different. And that is the best thing possible for the Tartarus Titans.
And when Layers first joined this team, I was talking a lot about how I thought that he should just try and fill the role of a role player. You know, let your star backline really shine. Let Benji be a superstar. I was wrong about that. Layers being a primary win condition for this team has looked unbelievable because then your backup win conditions of Paul and Cyclone and Benji are all going to be so rock solid that you feel like you can't lose, even on the games where Layers isn't hard carrying, which is kind of few and far between these days because he's hard carrying a lot of matches.
What other teams are getting 5 bans dedicated in every single set to one player? Paul has been a lightning rod for this squad, and it creates space for new stars like Layers to have absolutely crazy performances on his Kamazots that he's allowed to play every time because no team is banning anyone that isn't Paul. And even when you ban Paul, he's somehow getting Tiamat.
I think this is a team that they did it in Phase 2 playoffs. You would not be, and I would not be surprised if I saw them win again. And honestly, Phase 3 playoffs here, I'd be surprised if they even drop 2 games. Like, they are looking completely dominant against everybody else they've been put up against.
A lot of big points to come out of there. Unstoppable. How are you going to kind of break into this back line? How are you going to deal with the front line of the Tartarus Titans, who are also been low on the death count as a whole? And I think one of the big things being various lightning rods for this team. Paul has been a big one as far as the bans are concerned. It's something that's just been consistent across the board with almost every game the Titans have been playing, is every team has been focusing Paul and his bans. They spend 3-4 bans on Paul. Layers band seems to just kind of go untouched in all of these sets, and it seems like he's one of the bigger problems right now, Aggro.
Yeah, that's probably one of the things we don't talk about enough when it comes to Paul and the impact that he makes on a team, is that not just does he come in and absolutely hard carry games for you on a pretty regular basis, but he completely warps picks and bans on a level that no one really has in the past. He is the primary guy. We see Shinto get a lot of bans. We see Genetics get a lot of bans. There are players in this league that consistently get bans tossed their way, but none more so than Paul, and it has really opened up those Tartarus Titans drafts.
And it allows for players like Scream to make huge impact plays, get double-digit kill games, and just be able to hard carry for the rest of his team. Speaking of Layers, we do have him standing by with a pregame interview with Goremizer. Let's take it right over to him.
That's right, I've got Layers standing by here. And Layers, actually, this is something Aggro's going to get mad at me for this. I'm going to go off the card I have here. When you joined this team, it feels like you just became such a nice fit for them. How has it felt like, I guess, over these last couple of months, taking this team, going from where you were to where you are now on a team that feels like it's indomitable?
It's been really easy because of how good the surrounding cast is. As a jungler, when you have a really good team around you, it just makes the world so much easier. It makes my life so much easier, so that's my answer for that.
Well, that's nice and easy for you.
Yeah.
How do you feel like you guys have been adapting to this meta so far, like the last couple of weeks?
We kind of created the meta, actually. I feel like we kind of started the Cthulhu, Kama, all that stuff, and then people started doing that. People kind of just been copying us on what we're doing, like with the healing, and then everyone else is doing healing. We're kind of like the pioneers in that way.
Yeah, still the trendsetters, and
Yeah.
I expect that going forward, right? Today we're going to see something new out of you guys. Every other team in your group has been eliminated. I just want to know, coming in as the favorites, is there some pressure on you guys? Do you feel like the competition level is kind of jumping up from what you've experienced in the group stages?
I think it's a mixture of some people not showing up and having good days, and then other teams showing up too. It's always like that. No set's guaranteed. Everyone's got to show up to play if you want to win. So.
Well, it's going to be a fun one to watch, man. Good luck in your games. Thanks for your time. We'll kick it back to the desk to get those ones started.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I kind of want to take something that Layers said there, and something that we've been talking about, but hearing it coming straight from him is a very head-home point, is that they kind of pioneered this current meta that we're in, at least as far as the early half of Phase 3 and the group stages go. This Cthulhu, Morrigan, Kamazats, they're the players that brought this in. And they're right, and he's right to say that so many other teams have tried emulating it. The Leviathans, the Bolts have tried, but no one has been as successful as this team.
No, they haven't, but that is a little bit concerning to me almost, J-Mac, because I think the meta is totally different for this tournament than it was for those group stages. So if Layers and the Titans are coming in feeling like, hey, we're just going to do what we've been doing and we'll continue to do it better than the teams who are trying to emulate us, I think they're going to be caught off guard by what the Jade Dragons are throwing at them, because the Jade Dragons, I think, proved to me that they have the best handle of the 4 teams we saw yesterday on the meta. That's one of the reasons why they looked so dominant. It's picks like this Zeus. It's more pressure picks in the jungle. It's this Achilles in the solo lane that looked really good. I think that the way that the meta has shifted, I think that getting a warm-up set and feeling out what other teams are doing is a pretty big benefit in some ways to the Jade Dragons.
And I think some of the gods that we saw yesterday, namely the Alpwash and the Zeus more specifically, that got a couple targeted bans up against Hurrywin from the Dragons. Him and Ven, that's a god that we can see kind of battling between those ones. I don't really see Paul very much as being a Zeus player. His last 6 or so gods that he's just been running is been Morrigan. It's been the 3 different healer gods. Throw Morgan Le Fay in there, but Zeus hasn't really been in the wheelhouse. And then I also kind of want to throw over here to Final K on this Mulan. He is doing absurd amounts of damage on this god. Ever since her buff, we've been seeing a slight resurgence of her, but I think Final K probably put on the best showing of what that god is capable of in yesterday's sets.
Yeah, he looked phenomenal on the Mulan for sure. And to your Zeus point, for what it's worth, I mean, back in the day, Paul, when I was playing against Paul in the SCL, we were all Zeus players back then, but Paul included. Paul really prioritized that Zeus because it was a more pressure-oriented pick, and it is, again, a pressure-oriented pick. So I'd be kind of surprised if he doesn't at least have the option of going to it, but maybe he and his team didn't think that this was what the meta was going to be like, that it was going to be a little bit more similar to what we've seen, that it was going to be a little bit more Tiamat and cooldown focused. So I'm excited to see what the Titans have brought out because, they've been really good in the meta that we saw during group stages, but we've seen throughout the years teams that look absolutely dominant on one meta and never quite put it together on another. So this is a big test in my mind for the Tartarus Titans. Are they as good of a team as we think they are, at especially adjusting to the meta? Or maybe they can change it to what they think is best, and that we're wrong, that what the Jade Dragons were doing yesterday is close to what we expect for the rest of the tournament.
I'm just going to throw a few numbers at you, at least as far as the group stage is concerned for the Titans. I mean, we had three of the different casters here. I don't remember exactly which three. All were, Tartarus Titans fans on here. There were ones rooting, at least for the Tartarus Titans, to be the ones to come out at the end in those predictions as we jump into picks and bans here. Lowest KDA on that team during week 2 of group stage was 4.28, and that was a roar.
That's pretty high.
Obviously, Paul, we all know about his 41 out here. But then the next lowest on there, surprisingly, was Layers at 4.96. So almost a 5 KD in their jungler, 4+ across the board on this Titans team. But again, as you highlight, on that older meta, something that we saw previously, so I'm very interested to see how everything pans out here in the first game picks and bans. We're seeing some quick adjustments already. Heimdall, Sol, and Zhonghui banned away by the Tartarus Titans for the first half. And then Hell and Odin on the opposite side for the Jade Dragons, and throw the emoji there as a shot over against the support.
So this is interesting because the Zhonghui ban is not the Heimdall and the Zhonghui ban stand out to me. The Heimdall ban because maybe this means they prioritize the Morrigan, but in general it's just a general throwaway ban that in the first pick they want to open up as much OP stuff as possible, and RDO certainly fits that bill. So it's a strong first pick here for the Titans, but they're not addressing that Zeus pick that the Bolts banned away in both of their games. But you'll notice that in those games, the Jade Dragons, when they were in first pick position in particular, were always banning Daji. And I think that's because Daji just has an unbelievable matchup against Zeus. It's the best jungler in the game against Zeus, and it really isn't close. So if the Dragons go Zeus here, this should be a Daji pick from Layers. I don't care what else they pair it with. They should go with whatever they please. Maybe it's the Morrigan, because that's a really good transformation for her. So if I'm the Titans, I think I'm going Morrigan, Daji, but I think it's pretty critical that you get that pick for Layers and don't fall into that Camazotz trap the Bolts did twice in a row.
Yeah, the Camazotz has kind of been one of the premier ones going here for the jungler out of the Tartarus Titans. We'll see if he goes there. It's RDO, Achilles, and Zeus. We saw Achilles pop up yesterday a couple times as well. Whether it be jungle, whether it be solo lane, there's some flexibility on this god. The Jade Dragons now with their first 2 picks in. Tartarus Titans, you're calling for the Daji, but over here with the Titans, it seems that they want to go with the Camazotz route. We saw Variety played in solo lane yesterday, so maybe we can still see some potential, but they at least do get the Morgan that you were calling for.
Yeah, I think that this is just the Titans sticking to what they've been doing, and Layers has looked unbelievable on Camazotz. Do not get me wrong. And I think Kama is good into Zeus. What you want out of a jungler is into Zeus is someone who can get out of his damage range, and both Daji and Camazotz do that via their ultimates. It's just that Daji actually threatens Zeus relics a lot better and actually has that insta-kill potential late game. Camazotz can't kill Zeus through Book of the Dead late game in time. It just doesn't happen. You're too tanky with this build. So by going with the Camazotz instead of that Daji, I think that the Tartarus Titans have made their job a lot harder at handling Heroine on this pick.
Well, pairing that Zeus as far as the jungle can be concerned here, Erlong Shen to tie it as the final pick for the Jade Dragons before we go into the bans. And interesting, a Kabrakan being that first ban out of the Jade Dragons. I mean, we see the RTO and the Camazotz locked in. Is maybe this kind of shades towards old days of Aurora playing Camazotz as support of it, maybe kind of warranting this ban here?
No, I think that the Kabrakan pick, that's a classic Aurora selection. I think it's very good against Zeus. I think it's a very intelligent ban here from the Jade Dragons. The Jade Dragons do have the top pick coming out of this, and so normally you'd want Mike to end up getting the counter pick. Getting your ADC counter pick isn't usually that important. It was Hachiman for the Dragons yesterday that they prioritized pretty highly. You can just pick Hachi coming out of this ban phase and feel pretty good, but I also think that you could just pick Mike's God as another pseudo ban in this position. You could just pick. It was Ganesh yesterday that he picked in game 1 that I think looked pretty good, and I like that combo alongside the Zeus. I also think Ganesh is pretty good into RDO and the Morrigan. So I think if the Titans leave it open, I think Ganesh might be just the best option here for Mike.
It will not be the Ganesh ban. Instead, it'll be the Kabrakan Xingqian out of the Jade Dragons, the Tartarus Titans ban away Kepri and Geb, who managed to make it all the way through here despite the level of priority we've seen in kind of top threes out of that gob. That gives one more pick to the Jade Dragons over, and it will be the Ganesh that we saw yesterday, so that's coming back one more time. Now the Tartarus Titans have some questions they need to answer. We got to get Cyclone's God, we got to get Aurora's God locked in. You're looking over at this other side here, Aggro. Achilles, Zeus, Erlon, Ganesh. I mean, what 2 picks for the Titans left do you think they got to go towards?
Cyclone is a Xbalanque player, and you know that there's not a Fenrir pick coming, so Xbalanque looks pretty good to me here if I'm Cyclone. You could expect Hachi on the other side if you leave it open, so you could go Hachimon yourself. He has gone to Chernobog in the past. Interesting Ares pick. This is actually great here for Aurora. I mean, you look across the way, very little CC immunity. Only the Achilles has it built in. You know, that you can. Ares is just a pick that snowballs or gets snowballed on. Those are the only 2 options for this god. He either gets really far ahead and every cripple matters a lot on this Erlong, Shen, and Ganesh, that every ultimate puts a lot of pressure onto Zeus, Erlong, Ganesh because they don't have beads, or if they don't have beads because they don't have CC immunity in the ultimate. But if he falls behind, then every pin kills him. Every Ganesh ultimate into a Zeus ultimate kills him for free. And so this pick is really risky, I think, for Aurora. But if there's a guy to pull it off, it's him.
Yeah, not too many major Ares players left in the league like Aurora is. Muzen Cobb, the last pick here for the Jade Dragons. We did see a buff come to Muzen Cobb as of the recent patch, and it seems that little extra bit towards his stinger has made him such a popular pick. You say you really like it here in this Jade Dragons comp.
Love it, because you can't kill both immobile backliners easily. You know, even though you should be able to kill one of them fairly easily, both of these gods are the type of gods that if you leave them alone, they'll kill your team by themselves. And so you don't have great AoE if you're the Tartarus Titans. Your draft is very single target based. And so if you have to single target one of the backliners, the other one should theoretically absolutely decimate your entire team. And this front line should be very hard to play here for the Tartarus Titans because Erlong Shen kills front line really well, Ganesh kills front line really well, AMC now kills front line very well. I mean, you have 30% physical protection reduction on that stinger, and then you add in the Ganesh ult, you're going to have like half of your prots whenever they're hitting you. And like I said, these gods kill you really effectively. So I think that the Jade Dragons, yes, they pick another non-CC immune ultimate into the Ares, but he can't ult us all, right? Like he can't possibly get us all with a no escape. So I don't think that really concerns me that much. I really like the dichotomy of a Zeus AMC backline as long as there isn't great AoE to really punish you.
I mean, AMC sometimes just feels like another mage who just does physical damage in this instance. I mean, that stinger, we've shown just what kind of damage prowess that it has up into here. And with Achilles being the only god with that CC immunity, as you highlighted, could be damaging as far as the beads are concerned on this team, but hopefully not being able to get everybody at once with the Ares ultimate. But looking back over here towards the Tartarus Titans, this seems like a very Titans playstyle. It's not the same level of comp that we've been seeing out of them previously. It's not this Cthulhu Morrigan kind of nonsense here. What are the transformation targets for this Morrigan look like that could be a big benefit for the Titans?
Camazotz and Camazotz only. That's the only good transform in this game in my mind for Paul. If they're like burning down a fire, you can transform into Zeus because he has really good objective DPS. But other than that, I don't see a whole lot. Maybe you can get into the back line if you know no one has beads, transform to the Ares, pull them in. But I think it's pretty one-dimensional out of this Morrigan, which isn't horrible. Camazotz is one of her best transforms by far, but it's still not super inspiring what you're going to be able to pull in. So I'm really excited to see what Aurora is going to do in particular, because I think that the Jade Dragons got a lot of what they wanted. I think their draft, this is my interpretation of the meta, this Book of the Dead mid laner, you know, big damage in your back line, shred the front line. This is what I expected the meta to be coming into this event, and clearly the same with the Jade Dragons. But I think that the Titans did not show a whole lot of flexibility and change from the group stages, but Aurora's Ares pick is so good here potentially that it might not matter. So in my mind, this is Aurora versus the Dragons. Can he do enough in order to win the Titans this game?
Yeah, it really does seem that this meta just kind of came down to which mages are good at Book of the Dead. We've seen quite a few of those picked up. Opwash, Zeus, Chang'e, even some of the other healers like Hel and Aphrodite have made it through.
Yep.
Or it seems to be the Morrigan or a Hunter of some sort. Just Hunters with Bluestone Transcendence kind of seems to be the call here. Tartarus Titans, they do go with this Morrigan. Try and get Paul something comfortable, something he's carried on many games in the past. But Tartarus Titans, I think one of the biggest weaknesses that you maybe highlight here is the ability to kill these backliners, the ability to get back to the Zeus and the Samuzan Cobb. If you're trying to focus out one of them specifically here, Aggro, which of those two carries are you most concerned with killing as quick as possible?
I think you have to kill the AMC because killing the Zeus just becomes too difficult. Like I said, I just don't think Camazotz can kill Zeus through Book of the Dead late game, and you just don't have the damage numbers. Like, if you just run the numbers on how much does my 2 do, how much does my 1 do, how much does my follow-up auto do, and how much do 3 swoops do, it's not enough to eat through an entire Book of the Dead shield and everything like that, plus relic usage. So with that in mind, the AMC should be pretty easy for you to kill. That is enough damage to kill an AMC through an Aegis pretty easily. And you do have 2 Camazotzes, so you could double commit onto the Zeus, but I think that it's also much easier for AMC to kill your entire team than it is for Zeus to kill your entire team. You know, Zeus is much more AoE based, a little bit less single target. AMC has good AoE, of course, and the nightmare is that he stingers one guy, kills them, picks up Stinger, kills the next person without using Stinger. Then by the time the third person's coming in, Stinger's ready to go again. That's the nightmare scenario, but that's a lot of boxes you got to check in order to make sure that happens. So if I'm Layers, if I'm Paul, let's get Panda Cat out of this game early. Let's continue to kill him through the mid to late game. That should open up Aurora to be a little bit more aggressive, open up Benji to be a little bit more aggressive, and then we can just deal with Hurry as we please.
Is there kind of a ticking time bomb here for either of these sides? Like, one of these teams needs to get a win by X minutes, or it's essentially kind of game over here. I mean, we've seen with Book of the Dead, you kind of have that 20-25 before it becomes really difficult to kill. Is that kind of the time frame for the Tartarus Titans here?
I mean, they can get off to an easier lead, I think, if they kill the Zeus early, but the pressure of Zeus Erlong Shen mid is nearly unmatched. Like, there should not be any sort of mid-camp control coming from the Titans in this game. And they have to be respectful of that. That's a big thing, is how much have you practiced against something like Zeus Erlong that now brings a lot of pressure in that mid 2v2. I think that the only thing, I'm not worried about minutes or scaling. I think both these comps scale okay. Aurora cannot fall too far behind. You know, he cannot be down 3 levels to Mike or 5 levels to Hurry. You know, those are going to be problems more so than team-wide golden experience leads. Aurora's farm level is going to be absolutely critical in this game. And if I'm Sam, you know where I'm going early? Duo. I think that by far the most important member of this draft is this Ares. I'm trying to set him behind more than anything else. Trust Hurry, trust Fine, let them do their thing, go to Duo, get Panda Cat ahead, and most importantly, get Aurora behind.
Yeah, I think kind of talking to the opposite side of the field here, you know, we talked a lot about the duo. We talked a lot about, you know, you need to focus out this AMC if you can, kill the Ares if possible. But I'm looking at this kind of RDO Achilles matchup here into the solo lane. They're scaling towards the latter half of the game. And some of the changes we've seen to these solo startimes, it seems that this Warrior Zax has kind of been the primary go-to for these solo laners. But before we jump into game number 1, we are going to take a brief break, and then we'll come back to get you guys right into the action.
find ourselves trying to remember the good times, trying to forget the bad times. We find ourselves thinking about the future. We start to worry, thinking, what am I going to do? Where am I going to be in 10 years? But I say to you, hey, look at me. Please, don't worry so much. Because in the end, none of us have very long on this earth.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you so much for your patience as we get ready to jump into game number 1 of our first semifinal. The Tartarus Titans, the Jade Dragons. We've gotten a nice long look at the drafts for these teams. Have a lot of time to kind of dive down in. Agro, one of the points that you stressed here was this feels like, you know, a group stage kind of a meta coming out of the Titans versus what we saw in this new meta out of the Jade Dragons. How do you think that might fare here in game number 1? Do you think the Tartarus Titans, if they lose game 1, need to make that quick adjustment towards the new?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously, if things are changing in the meta, you have to be able to adjust to those. So that is something that, you know, I don't blame the Tartarus Titans. You're in a best of 5. You've been working really well on the old thing. Let's just try what we knew. If it works, great. We don't have to show our hand. You know, we can save those things that we've been working on for Worlds or for later in the set if things start going against us. So you can wait it out. But I do hope that they've been working on some new stuff behind the scenes, because teams that are really good, especially this time of year, that really put in as much effort as possible into preparing for what you're drafting and to try and get ready for you, if you're just being a little bit predictable, it could be pretty problematic.
Well, with World's implications on the line, the winner of this set goes to the SWC. Who's going to take game number 1? No, let's find out with Gore and Mifflin.
That's right, it's Goran. I got Mifflin hanging out with
Yo.
me here for this one. The Titans, and our first look at them in, 2 weeks now that we've gotten to see them. First look on 8-11. The Dragons, though, yesterday, Mifflin, they were kind of on a tear. They had a smooth sailing here to the semis.
And here's the thing about how the Dragons yesterday got to play essentially exactly what they're playing right now. They did. So the Jade Dragons get to test their mettle up against what could be one of the best in the league in the Tartarus Titans. This draft from the Jade Dragons is so hard to deal with. But one thing that I think the desk talked about was the fact that the Tartarus Titans really need to play around Aurora, and also that Paul is going to have to get to some significant targets in the back line. I think that with the new Book of the Dead meta for gods like Zeus, how does the Morrigan kill a Zeus? She comes in, she stuns you, she does 80% of your HP bar, and then you get it all back in a health shield immediately. Maybe it's just Panda Cat.
Yesterday there was a lot of conversation, specifically around Zeus, which was, before Book of the Dead, he's still just Zeus. You can kill him, and theoretically that's going to be something they need to capitalize on. Look towards layers, maybe trying to open up that opportunity. But then Book of the Dead, we've seen the Sundering Axe. He's got the Warrior's Axe right now that comes in a little bit later. It just feels like there's going to be a certain point where Heroine just transitions to beyond the Zeus. Not the Zeus that we know that you can kill, that's easy, that's immobile, but a Zeus that if you get too close to, he's just going to slaughter you.
And that comes at second or third item, depending on how Heroine decides to itemize. If it's a little bit more survivability early on, it's going to take a little bit longer to get that damage, but it will kind of remove some of that propensity of the Tartarus Titans to play inside of the 3v3. So keep your eyes on that or here.
Yeah, they're going to get aggressive. Paul's taking a lot of damage, but it's Layers who gets first blooded. A detonate gets Paul low as well. Herwind and Sam making sure to take the lead here, and that is maybe your worst case scenario for who got the first blood.
Yep, Zeus with the lead in a new meta with survivability as well.
does not feel great, especially considering you've got a high aggressive jungler for the Jade Dragons and the Tartarus Titans. Layers falling down early means now Sanford Soccer gets free reign of Layers' right side of the jungle, invading both back camps. Should be able to leverage that into maybe a blue buff invade as well very shortly. Zeus now maintains the beads, gets first blood, has a lead, can head back to base and get some of those items online a little bit more quickly.
Oh, he doesn't want a blue buff. He wants Benji as of right now. Fine, okay, getting aggressive alongside
Good
Sam.
route.
There's a good pin to make sure that they stay there. A good knock-up as well. The damage just not enough to kill off Benji, but it gets him low. You were looking for the blue buff invade. This seems like perfect setup.
It is. Layers is nearby, though. Could be a 2v2 engagement, but this Camazotz at level 3 just has the mace. I'm not sure this is the time for Layers to fight.
Fine, okay, is mean mugging him as well. He does not want him to even step towards this side of the jungle. Layers is going to fall back, get his speed buff, and they will steal away that blue buff on the right-hand side for the Dragons. It has been a wild success story on the other side. The Titans not able to steal away that purple, but I believe a Harpy and a lot of control in this lane has been happening for the duo. So despite mid and solo not going the way they want, Titans right now for the duo lane, which is where the Death said they should be playing from, feel like they're comfortable.
And don't expect that to change for at least a couple of levels. AMC might be one of the only hunters in the game that can match up against Izanami in terms of clear, but that's not for a good deal of time.
Yeah.
You need to get the honey maxed a little bit, or the bees as well. So for now, Cyclone Spin gets a free pass for aggression, which should facilitate Aurora to look for those aggressive styles of plays to try and utilize the chains throughout the early game. But as of now, if the whole game plan is get Aurora into a position where he can bully the entirety of the Jade Dragons, he's dead even. That's not exactly where you need him.
Yeah, he'd like to push that a little further. And admittedly, you know, you looked at the Izanami AMC. I also had to look and throw Ganesh under the bus. Like, Ganesh is really good at Smite, you know, 10 minutes plus, maybe even a little further on in the game. Right now is not the time. Like, Mike's silence is pretty good. Dharmic Pillars is all right when he hits 5, but, like, his clear is not going to be what you are picking this for. So it feels like maybe an opportunity for the Titans to start rotating over here towards left. We see some of these neutral camps, the mid camps, and these oracles going the way of the Titans. And that's where the catch-up game is right now. You saw that first blood, already a small lead for Hurrywin, and of course a small lead here for Sam after stripping a lot of the jungle away from Layers. So this is a very big and important pickup for Layers and Paul to be able to grab.
And speaking of Hurrywin, Book of Thoth already finished up, so he's going to be stacking that with relative ease, I suppose, considering Layers is kind of just on the back foot right now. This Camazotz is one of the better gods for dealing with Zeus. It's very similar in methodology as dealing with like an Oleron or something along those lines, where Zeus will drop his ultimate and you don't want to play inside of it. He's not time dilating you, he's simply killing you. But Camazotz can remove himself from the playfield and return damage in those situations. So Hurrywin may have a lead for now, but still has to play cautiously once Layers starts to rotate in.
It reminds me a lot of Game 1, I believe against the Bolts yesterday. The Dragons had the Zeus, they had the Ganesh, and the concept was, all right, I'm going to drop Zeus ult, and like whether or not you play in that, we could put Dharmic Pillars up inside of it, and now you have to choose, do you want to take the Dharmic Pillar proc and leave, or do you want to stand on the Lightning Storm? And neither is a good choice. So the Dragons have a win-win scenario in some of these team fights. But they do, and this was highlighted by the desk a ton, have a lack of CC, 3 people with beads, and an Ares on the other side who just hit 5. So I'm starting to look towards Aurora right now because he is the guy for the Titans.
He is. Aurora can really start to slow down the Jade Dragon's role, and I think playing around the duo lane should be the methodology for the Tartarus Titans, which is why we see Layers on this side of the map, just trying to see if maybe he can make something happen. But the Titans do also seem to realize that early game should be where they're trying to push their lead. It's a triple blink pickup for the Tartarus Titans, only 2 sets of beads on Paul and Cyclone Spin. So Aurora, Layers, Benji, all incredibly susceptible to some phenomenal chain CC potential from the Jade Dragons. PBM has it all.
Oh, they might go for it right here. Panda Cat chasing him down, gets the last hit, and is able to kill off Cyclone Spin, but now the damage is going to be there. No escape is going to pull Panda Cat in, but Aurora doesn't have the follow-up. Honey slows him down. A couple more autos is all it takes, and the duo lane for the Titans get taken down by the Dragons. They lead 3-0, and Paul just has to watch the rotation a shade too late.
Man, meditation is just good, man. PBM walks in, pops his relic, and says, let's roll.
Now Paul looking to get aggressive alongside Layers. There's going to be the Lightning Storm, though, and the damage is turned around. There's a detonate, and that takes out Layers, no problem. Transform into the Camazotz for Paul, gets the disengage, but has just had to watch his team fall around him.
Man, some metas just fit teams, and this is a Jade Dragons meta. Aggressive picks across the board, utilizing it in the early game. 4 kills in 6 minutes, and potentially even a tier 1 tower. Zeus now with the additional attack speed can burn through these objectives pretty quickly, but the Jade Dragons choose not to stick around. Instead, reset themselves and try and find some neutral farm. And the Tartarus Titans, off of one proactive attempted play in the duo lane, come out far behind.
All I can think is, flashes of what the desk was saying. You are looking at a team where you said, cool, if you can stop AMC, if you can stop Zeus, that's going to be great. And in most of these team fights, Leviathan's at kill 1, the other one's probably still going to go big. They're both 2-0 right now, Mifflin, and they are more than happy to be in that. Plus, with this Morgan and this Izanami, they're falling behind slightly when you look at the items. It feels like the window, at least in terms of killing off Whirlwind easily, is starting to close on them. And we haven't gotten to see a whole lot from the Titans in terms of what their engage could be.
No, we have not. Aurora's been largely left to the duo lane, trying to find some sort of footing there. And what did Aggro say exactly? If Aurora's ever 3-4 levels down on Hurrywin, that doesn't look so good. Well, we're there. He's level 6 to Hurrywin's 9, and he's also down about a level and a half to PBM. This Ares is a feast or famine god, to be sure. And right now, my man has not eaten.
He is starving, I guess is the best way to describe it. He is feeling kind of like me. I haven't eaten so far today.
Well, you should. This is a long set.
This is going to be a long set. No, it's just it's its own thing. He's got his Thebes going, again, a little bit behind where Mike is. And that's where things really start to fall apart. If you look at it, the only person who is relatively even right now is going to be Benji over here in solo. Neither kills, no assists have happened for this. So a little bit of gold from an invaded blue buff earlier on from FineOK. Otherwise, it's him. Maybe you can look over towards the Izanami right now. Cyclone Spin matching up 9-9.
Yeah, those are where your leads lie currently.
Oh, well, never mind.
But not exactly the most ideal situation. As a 3-stack in mid, PBM maybe looking to dive Aurora in the tower. Just some good poke. Chain Lightning rings through, and the detonate does massive damage.
That's just, and look, that's a blink, right? I mean, he just blinks forward, or not even blinks forward. You blink your eyes, and that's the amount of damage that he's able to get out of there. That's how confusing that sentence can be. And now, we talked about it, Aggro had mentioned it on the desk. Great objective burn. Let's talk about objective burn. Lightning Storm, Dharmic Pillars, that's all you need. 4 members of the Dragons group up over around the Gold Fury. They go ahead and secure that one, and are now approaching the 3,000 gold mark ahead. And that is getting a little outrageous for 9 minutes.
And there's an added benefit of killing Gold Furies that quickly. That means you've already actively desynced the timers of these neutral objectives. So the Jade Dragons can just walk to the Pyromancer and do it all over again. And the Tartarus Titans, they either have to show up and take a fight, and do you want to take a fight from behind up against a Zeus, Erlang, Shen, Achilles? I'm not sure that you do, but you also can't just let it go.
Well, this is finally something going the way of the Titans. A blue buff invade successful. Benji's able to get that. FineOK still stuck around, though, with 3 Titans players in front of him just to defend it and to try and secure it. And that is bravery at its finest. If you watched yesterday, the Dragons, it was 4-0 in the very first game against the Bolts. They only got 4 kills the entire time. That's all they needed. And this is following a similar trajectory. It is not anywhere near as simple for them. They are having contests around these neutral objectives. They are having a lot of fights and skirmishes from the Titans. But no kills yet for the Titans. A group up from here. Aurora goes into the ult. He's going to pull Sam, but it doesn't have the follow-up that's necessary. Instead,
Yikes.
It's going to be Aurora who gets burned down. They were waiting for it. Now, though, you've got 2 Camazotz to deal with, 2 bats out of hell, and yet they still have to use it to disengage. The damage is not there. Lightning Storm used by Hurwin way too defensively, but it doesn't matter. They still get a kill onto Layers. Now Benji, silenced, forced to run away. Detonate is good, and him and Paul have to get out of there. They lose the tier 1 in mid.
So we saw what the dive looks like from the Tartarus Titans. Double Camazotz goes on to Hurrywin, and what happens? They drop him to 40% HP, and he gets a 90% of his HP back and a shield, essentially. The Jade Dragons, this draft is so incredibly annoying. It is so incredibly strong, and the Tartarus Titans seem to be folding under the weight of it currently. They still do have win conditions come late game, but those win conditions are dwindling. They're becoming thinner and thinner. It's so hard now for the Tartarus Titans to find their footing, because even if the Titans win a team fight in the next 2-3 minutes, there's nothing they can do. Gold Fury's dead. Pyromancer is gone. You've already lost your mid-tier 1 tower, so the Jade Dragons will likely keep those waves pushed up pretty far. So the Tartarus Titans' best case scenario, likely, if they cleanly win a team fight, is a tier 1, and tier 1s aren't worth a lot.
Nope, they do not give you a lot of money. They don't really afford you. I guess a little bit of map pressure, but if the Dragons knock all of yours down, you're just taking some back, as opposed to what is going in the case of the Dragons here, where they have an advantage distinctly on the map. I was going to mention the fact that Book of the Dead, it's got such a long cooldown, right? It's still got 10 seconds left. Maybe that's your window. And then I looked at Hurry's actives, and neither of them have been used.
Yeah.
You've got a lot to worry about from this mid laner. Outside of the damage, killing him is going to be problematic. We haven't seen a lot of pressure onto Panda Cat either. This AMC seems to be doing just fine. He got that 2 kills earlier. And Panda Cat seems to be coasting. A lot of presence from the Titans here on the left-hand side of the map. But I don't know that it's going to amount to anything. If anything, it feels like the Dragons are starting to fish for something.
And if they find Aurora, they would have reeled him in immediately. Aurora's dangling on the knife's edge, man. If anyone hits him with any form of CC right now, my man is simply dead as Panda Cat keeps Cyclone Spin stuck inside of this tower. The Jade Dragons, they're opening up a trap here. It's just whether or not the Tartarus Titans are going to step into it, or if they're just willing to lose out on that Greater Scorpion. Not a major loss, not something you really want to fight over, but still just another little added layer of bleed that the Jade Dragons are able to put onto their opposition.
Yeah, well, it was 3,000, and I think it was just barely that. It was 2,800 after that Gold Fury has now started to expand to almost 4,000 gold in favor of the Dragons. So feeling like a very massive lead. Again, 13 minutes into this game. They've got a minute left for the Fury to respawn. Fire Giant's on the table, but probably not in the eyesight of the Dragons for at least a few more minutes, although the pace of this game and the burn that we saw
honestly,
last time,
like maybe.
it's not necessarily the most outrageous call. I'm going to look towards the Titans right now. Where is it? What engagements? How do they start to combat what the Dragons have?
If anything, you need Paul to be on Panda Cat duty. That's really the only guy I can imagine this Morgan having a great 1v1 potential up against. If he's able to connect that stun onto this AMC in the back line, isolate it, immediately transform into literally anybody, Final K, Sanford Soccer, even Layers, those are all great transformations for Paul. Could potentially try and finish him off, but Panda Cat's headed back to base now. Going to pick up that secondary relic as well as some crit. Wind Demon finished up. Aegis picked up as well. So maybe that window closes a little bit, but I don't think Paul can give up on it just yet. Somebody on the Tartarus Titans needs to start burning beads, though. Every single time that Aurora...
got 4 up.
Yeah, if Aurora has
no.
ultimate and everybody has beads on the Jade Dragons, that's a misplay. If you're only getting one man with no escape, that's fine because it opens up the door for you to pick him a little bit later on. But if you're saying, well, what's the point of using my ult? They have beads. Who's going to burn them? They haven't been burned. Somebody has to.
Now, I've got a question for you, and it's maybe going to have to take a little bit of a wait. Benji's going to go ahead and blink forward onto Final K. Final K doesn't have a lot of mana to work with. Layers is here, and they're burning through the health bar, but the shield is good, and it feels like the tower is going to help a little bit. You've also got PBM coming in for backup. They're going to have to fall back and let this one go by the wayside. Meanwhile, Oni Fury, other side of the map, Dragons secure that one and get themselves another objective.
They do, and now the Tartarus Titans, realizing they can't stick around too much longer, are going to seal away those back camps and then immediately reset themselves. Had Hurrywin made his way over, that fight completely turns around. But with all that space on the right-hand side of the map, knowing that everybody on the Tartarus Titans is playing there, Sanford Soccer attempts a gank on Cyclone Spin, but it's spotted out by a nice ward.
And this is a good position to be in if you're the Dragons, regardless of the fact that you're not getting maybe the ganks you were looking for. You get a tier 1 now in left on top of the Oni Fury. Guess what? Also that Gold Fury you got earlier. Oh yeah, by the way, that tier 1 in mid. Like, map pressure just feels like it is entirely in their favor as of right now. The question I was going to have was the desk had highlighted Paul as being maybe one-dimensional with this ult. Pretty much Camazotz being the best option. Is there anybody on the Dragons knowing that they're ahead that it's worth? Like, can you turn into Zeus and feel good about it, or is it a no-go?
Honestly, turning into Zeus, probably not that bad considering how the Jade Dragons composition works as far as dive is concerned. If Final K, Sanford Soccer, and PBM are running you down, if Paul turns into Zeus, drops Lightning Storm at his feet, gets benefit from this Book of the Dead build, a little bit of additional survivability as well, I wouldn't argue against that. If you want to turn into Sanford Soccer and be an initiator and get a little bit of HP back, that's not awful either. If you've already won out on the team fight, transforming into Final K and getting that Achilles execute to finish off some of these kills isn't awful either. But it generally should be Camazotz. I'll throw him a bone.
It's that Camazotz is the by and large best option for you. But like the others aren't like terrible. It's just, you know, you probably shouldn't do them unless those very, very specific scenarios you just highlighted maybe come up. Pyromancers respawned over here on the right-hand side. And again, I think it's worth. This time I actually am going to mention Fire Giant because it feels legitimately possible over the next couple of minutes. 18 minutes has been that sweet spot for a majority of the SPL this year. Pyromancer started up, It doesn't look like there's going to be any contest here from the Titans. No one's going to get close to that. So the Dragons get that one for free. They're pushing up to, what is that, 5,500 gold now in their favor. Yeah, about 5,200 and a 2,400 experience lead at this point. They're feeling that every single way.
They are. It is some slight leads for the Tartarus Titans. Layers has got an experience lead in the jungle. It's been about a half level for Cyclone Spin as well, but outside of that, it's been pretty significant gaps in the mid lane, about a level and a half for Hurrywin, 2 levels for PBM, and then even in the solo. Benji and Fine OK kind of been just brawling it out over there.
Just relaxing as of right now. Cyclone Spin relaxing in a very stressful way, though. Has to try and get away. No, he's not going to get the disengage that he wants. Dark Portal, he tries to turn it around, but Dharmic Pillars lock him up. The honey is enough, and a couple of shots from Panda Cat get themselves a kill. 3-0 now for the AMC. Matching up with the 2-0-2 out of Hurrywin. It's 7-0 right now, Mifflin, and we have not gotten to see the Titans take a fight successfully at all.
Gore, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in Game 1 of the Dragons versus Camelot King set, they goose-egged them there as well. Is this the new Jade Dragons passive? Game 1, we just plank them?
We will win Game 1, and you won't get anything out of it. I mean, hey, if that's the mentality they're able to come into this with, it's a good one. Even yesterday when they played the Bolts, they ended up having to ban Zeus, things like that, to control this kind of composition.
Oh, keep your eyes
so
open.
So the Dragons are happy. Yeah, watch this. 2 ults that are going to be available. That Dharmic Pillars may be coming up soon. Fire Giant's already at 3/4 health. Dragons started up. Layers, Benji, Aurora, spot it out. That's a little bit of aggression from the Dragons, but they're not going to leash the objective. They recognize what they want. Now it's just going to be a fallback. Okay, a retreat from both teams. They're not feeling as confident in their berth.
But the Jade Dragons, realizing that they dedicated nothing to burning that Fire Giant and still got dropped to 50% as quickly as it did. Not a single ability from Zeus was used on it. He didn't even get the attack speed stem to burn it. Panda Cat holds on to the majority of his kit as well. Frenzy still available. The Jade Dragons still have the exact same level of threat. The only thing missing is Sam for Soccer's ultimate. So not as good an initiation, but as far as the Fire Giant is concerned, his days are numbered.
Well, hey, guess what? They're going to start up one more time. It's going to be that Fire Giant. Hurrywin feels like he might be positioned a little aggressively here. Layers is going to jump in, and Layers is taking too much damage. He goes into the bat out of hell, but he is in execute range. He has to fall back and get away. Luckily for him, he's Kamazatzi's alive, and he's going to be able to heal up, but he's out of this fight.
He is, and he wasn't even able to proc Hurrywin's Book of the Dead, so all that survivability is still there.
And not only available, the damage is going to come through. Lightning Storm thrown out, and that's going to create a no-go zone for the Titans, but it's not going to find... There's that Book of the Dead proc, and Hurrywin is not only alive, but now starting to get taken down. Dark Portal finally going to be able to connect. Layers trades out his life for it. Paul has to use the bat out of hell to disengage. Cyclone Spin running away. Doesn't have his bead, still has his Aegis. Sam gets the pin, but doesn't have the follow-up damage. And the Titans are going to be able to make this a 1-for-1, maybe a 1-for-2 in favor of the Dragons, because Aurora couldn't escape the way he wanted to.
He could not. Keep your eyes on Benji. He's pushed up pretty far over there. Nobody from the Jade Dragons has eyes on him currently, but if he doesn't head back to base, might get caught out here. But as it seems, the Jade Dragons are willing to go ahead and reset that entire engagement. The Tartarus Titans, I think that's about as good as you could hope for in that engagement. Shutting down Hurrywin is no small feat. My man had Book of the Dead, his entire team around him, beads and Aegis available, but still somehow the Tartarus Titans, with continued dive from Layers, who resustained in mid off the initial, was able to work his way back in there and turn around that engagement slightly. And now, taking a peek at the relics from both of these teams, you might think the Tartarus Titans just won that fight.
Honestly, and this is a weird thing, a 2-for-1 trade never feels ultimately worthwhile, but actually an 0-4 Layers and an 0-3 Aurora feels like it might have been worth it just to kill off Hurrywin. Maybe you're not overwhelmingly successful afterward. The neutral objective that we just saw, another Fury going the way of the Dragons, it maybe doesn't feel as good anymore, but it still felt like it could have been a successful fight for them with the follow-up. The Dragons are just controlling a lot of the pretty much middle of the map area. You can draw a line pretty much through red buff horizontally. That's about as far forward as the Titans feel comfortable in a lot of these engagements. Pyromancer's going to be coming up soon. Fire Giant's still on the table. It's those relics you had highlighted. Mike has his thanks to the relic dagger, but nobody else on his team is going to be able to have the same luxury. And that might be a good opening for the Titans.
It could be. The Tartarus Titans still playing at a pretty large deficit, can't really proactively exploit the fact that every defensive relic is down for the Jade Dragons, barring Meditation, but they can at least show up to a team fight. I think instead it's the Jade Dragons saying, hey, maybe we start a fight in exactly 50 seconds when both Fine OK and Sam for Soccer get their beads back and available. And with the lead that the Dragons have established, they're allowed to slow down the pace of this game, even though we are about 21 minutes in. They can start to group up on the Pyro. I doubt we see the Tartarus Titans trying to defend there, but outside of that, Fire Giant, that's got a couple of days left, a couple of moments while we wait for these relics.
Yeah, it's definitely not immediately in trouble. I'm actually really surprised with how in sync. First off, perfectly in time for Hurrywin and Panda Cat on the beat, so that had to have been an Aurora thing. But their Aegises are also really, really close together. And that's bad news bears for the Titans, because that means in 15 seconds, guess what? The Dragons are going to be feeling pretty much right back at full force. Every relic back available, and which admittedly is also true for the Titans, so it's going to balance out. Every ult coming back online, everyone's going to be at full power.
Some differences in this team fight, though, is that Panda Cat has hit a very significant power spike in the time between the last Fire Giant and this upcoming one. Fail Not picked up. And for those of you at home, Fail Not recently got a buff. It's just got 20% crit on it again. So it's in a phenomenal stat stick. Has crit, penetration, cooldown, power, everything you want from an item.
All those things you just said, I like those.
Yeah, those are all things
especially
that I would
for
purchase.
my hunter.
Yeah, if I had gold, I'd buy that.
Now, if I had gold, there's a lot you can afford.
No!
Dragon, no way. That hurts to watch.
Oh, man.
99% of the health bar there for the Pyromancer taken by the Titans. And 1% is all you need if you're the Dragons. They scoop that one away. Another neutral objective going their way. And stolen is the only correct way to describe that one. It was ripped from their hands.
Yeah, robbery in broad daylight as the Jade Dragons start up the fight yet again.
There's a good taunt from Sam, and Benji just gets burned down. Good luck trying to fight, man. You had nowhere to go, and now you are just down your front line if you're the Titans.
And here's the thing about how Aurora's 5 levels down, by the way. If that's the win condition for the Tartarus Titans, it's going to be a little while till that rears its head. He can't go in. If he channels his ult, he dies.
Oh, here's going to be a silence. He can't do anything. Layers tried to go in. Bat out of hell comes through. Detonate is not enough damage to take him out of the sky. But luckily, there's 2 people chasing him. No, they're going to give up on that because they caught a bigger fish. They kill off Aurora. You had mentioned 5 levels down. Get rid of him. There's a TKO here. Might as well be gone if you're Layers. He's going to heal up a little bit. This feels like a free Fire Giant for the Dragons.
Yeah, nobody can show up and try and put up a defense. Surprised to see Layers not maybe peek his head around the corner and try and steal out that speed buff, but instead just going to go ahead and try and find some sort of safety elsewhere on the map as the Jade Dragons take yet another engagement. It was a desynced engagement from the Tartarus Titans. Benji in first, caught out, immediately executed by Final K. Aurora at the tail end of the fight says, well, I'm nearby. Maybe I try and find a pool. Pulls in Sanford Soccer, I believe, and well, who cares, man? You're level 13 still, 0-4 on this Ares with only 1 singular assist. So you pulled him in, and you pulled him to your own death. Not very tanky at this point is the Ares. So the Jade Dragons barrel through that engagement, pick up the Fire Giant for all 5 members, maintain the majority of their defensive relics, so we don't get that exact same wait time between fights. I think the Dragons are probably very comfortable with their ability to continue another fight and maybe siege out these Tier 2 towers. And then on the tail end of the Tier 2 towers, considering how early in the game we are right now, I think that the Jade Dragons fall back, go to the Primal Fury, spend up all that gold, and then can siege a Phoenix afterward, depending on how quickly they're able to execute their plan.
We've got 3 minutes left on the power play as of this point. And not a crazy change in map state yet. And that's the key word. There's a minion wave here with Panda Cat and Fire Giant. This Tier 2 might as well be gone and forfeit for all they want. But I have to keep my eyes. Layers, Aurora, Benji, now the Izanami as well, starting to join this left-hand side, meet the Dragons in kind in terms of force. Sam split pushing alongside Fine OK. They're going to get the Tier 2 in mid. And I think it's pretty much on par with what you said. They're taking it a little patiently. They recognize their timer, though, Mifflin. They're setting up for some Phoenixes.
Oh, they are. It's going to be Phoenixes before the Tier 2 clear across the board. The Jade Dragons playing it slow here. As long as they're able to burn out some of these key cooldowns from the Tartarus Titans, it's going to make it so much easier for them to go for the siege proper. I'm talking about No Escape from Aurora and Changeling from Paul. Those are the 2 cooldowns you need to keep your eyes on if you're a Tartarus Titans fan. When either one of those gets used, that's the go button. That's, we need to get a kill. We need to find a pick. Or you forfeit the base.
I'm going to take something from your book. You used to always equate Fire Giant to about 10k gold in and of itself. And they're up just a plain 10k gold. Now they're going to engage. Sam gets the taunt. Benji is just deleted. It's the same thing that happened at the Fire Giant, but it's right here under the left side Phoenix. Crits are ringing true for Cyclone Spin, but there's not a lot of damage on the field, and the Dragons are going to be able to walk right back into this one.
They are still healthy. It's only PBM that's taken any significant amount of damage, and Well, he's resustaining thanks to the efforts of Fire Giant. Paul's going to show himself if he decides to clear this wave. That could just spell the end of this left side Phoenix.
Yeah, they walk forward. In fact, FidoK is even going to go ahead and saunter over to the mid Phoenix. 4 members of the Dragons take left, and now they're waiting for the engage. Who they want to try and collapse on. Doesn't feel like they're as confident in their capabilities of just burning down Layers or Aurora. They're going to start up the mid Phoenix.
They are. So far, soft defense from the Tartarus Titans. Without Paul, I'm not sure they can do anything here.
Yeah, Paul finally backs to base. Phoenix, it's going to go down now. They're 27 minutes in, and the Dragons, with a 11K gold lead, 2 Phoenixes down, they're going to have to back off. 1 minute left on the power play. You had mentioned a lot of gold from the tier 2s. Now you get a little bit more gold just from hanging around over here, all the minions that have gone down. And there's still that Primal Fury that's on the table. So I expect a pretty big power spike about to happen.
Yeah, every single member of the Jade Dragons is going to head back to base and pick up an entire item. Slayers takes a 1v1 up against Fine, okay? You don't win that.
Yeah, I was looking at that wondering if that was something, and it is something, but it's something for Fine OK, not for Layers. Now, though, it's the Titans getting aggressive, maybe collapsed on. Fine OK's in a good spot to try and CC him. There's another taunt from Sam for Soccer. Pulls in a roar, but it's not going to be enough burn follow-up to kill him off. That's how they killed Benji both times. With that ult down, the Dragons are going to go ahead and back away.
Man, did you see how the Jade Dragons disengage that? Hurrywin tosses down his shield. There's a honey there as well. And the Tartarus Titans say, well, I'm not walking through that. What if he chain lightnings that bad boy? Maybe I just die off the tail end. Let's head back to base, you know? Let's make sure the Titan doesn't have to 1v1 these waves. So the Tartarus Titans do exactly that. They disengage. The Jade Dragons potentially could have found a couple more picks there, but with Hurrywin as far away as he was, despite Sanford Stalker finding a nice taunt, there really wasn't an opportunity for an all-in. And then once that call was made, it was as if a switch was flipped for the Jade Dragons. It was, let's look for a fight, let's look for a fight. Oh, maybe not. Hurrywin can't get it. He's not in range. Let's just walk out. And the disengage was so clean.
It's just smooth sailing so far for the Dragons. They haven't met too many bumps in the road. Titans right now are dealing with minion waves, push up over towards the middle to deal with this fire minion wave in left. They did something likewise there in mid. Fire Giant's going to be up in 20 seconds, so they've got a little window to work with.
I really like what we just saw from the Jade Dragons. A 5-man stack on the left side of the map. You're thinking, why are they doing that? Primal's already dead, Phoenix is down, but generally teams like to push up those fire waves to put themselves in a position where they can defend the Fire Giants. So the Jade Dragons coin toss. They say, well, if somebody shows up to clear this wave, we're going to kill him. That's the simple truth of it. Unfortunately for the Dragons, they don't hit pay dirt.
I mean, you get one, again, win-win scenario. Either you kill whoever's trying to clear the wave, or you get to push your wave, and now it's right back at the Phoenix. Aurora goes up, gets a one-man pull. Dharmic Pillars dropped there by PBM. Fine OK rotates into the back. Lightning Storm down for Zeus, and the damage is going to be good. Aurora's the first one to fall. Paul is in the sky in the bat out of hell, forced to disengage, but he can't escape.
What?
Fine OK, he's going to end up jumping in. Layers goes down in the back. They kill off Cyclone Spin. Paul has one more hit, and Benji is following a similar fate, trying to run for his life, but it doesn't matter. The bees are going to get the tick damage, the slow, the kill, the deicide, and the game for the Dragons.
Never in the history of Smite has Zeus been able to survive the same level of dive that I just saw. Double swooping Camazot's ultimate, procs an 80% health shield. Afterward, he still has beads.
No.
Still has Vegas. Just crazy stuff, man.
They are, okay, no, they're attacking. I was going to say they are waiting for the minions, but no, Cyclone Spin, Aurora, the rest of the crew would respawn a little bit too soon. They kill off the Titan there, and they get this first game. Mifflin, this is the 4th game in a row now for the Dragons this weekend where it has felt very much in their favor. Even Game 3 yesterday where the Bolts started to show something didn't feel like it was as contested as it could be. This is a frightening team.
It really is, man. They've really adapted to this new meta, haven't they? 8.11's been out for how long? Like actually on the live client, like 5 days maybe?
Yes.
How do they have as good a grasp as they do? They've got the new builds down. This is a completely new style of composition. They've adapted well to it, and they've melded it with that key Jade Dragons styling. It's early game aggression with great late game scaling. The Dragons, they've completely 180'd.
Yeah, they get game 1 here. The Titans are going to have to shuffle things up if they want to turn this set into something longer than 3. We'll see if they can do it right after this.
Hey, wait, what did it win?
You win the respect.
You're telling me an alien wore this?
Perfect. Okay.
Okay, that was a good cut.
Messaging him to mute.
The best graphics you really need, Ultra, of course, and I can probably watch a stream on the side.
Content's gonna look good.
Pretty good, pretty good.
die, a lot of people are afraid. They're going to be locked up in a dark room forever. Think about that. But it's one of the great wonders of life. What will it be like to go to sleep but never wake up?
There are games you sit down to, games you stand up to, games you poke fun at, and games that poke fun at you. In essence, there is a game for every age group. Most of the young people, however, prefer the newer electronic games that have no time limitations. The interest in electronic games apparently is at an all-time high. It's expected to remain that way as long as people continue to look for inexpensive ways to entertain themselves, and the end is not in sight.
Well, a brutal game one, to say the very least. The Jade Dragons come up victorious and start the set out at 1-0. If you want to represent the Dragons, represent the SPL in general, or find a way to immortalize yourself here in the SPL, go to shop.smiteproleague.com and get our limited edition Smite Pro League mouse pads. This is the last time that they're going on sale, and then they're gone forever. So if you haven't gotten one yet, This is your last opportunity to do so. They'll be on sale for the remainder of this weekend, so make sure that you pick one up now before you don't have the opportunity to do so. Again, thank you so much, Inside Apparel, for bringing those back to us one final time for the Smite Pro League official mouse pads. Make sure to go to shop.smiteproleague.com and get yours before you can't get it ever again. It's J Mac Tucker and Aggro joining me here to break down game number 1. And, well, it seems it was a case of the new meta is stronger than the old meta. And a lot of the problems you brought up were very relevant here in game 1.
Yeah, it's almost like, you couldn't kill the Zeus through the Book of the Dead with Camazotz plus the Morgan, so we shouldn't really be picking those gods, especially highly. We should be trying to prioritize that. We should be worried about our front lines because they were kind of just getting Erlong taunted into Ganesh ulted into AMC ulted, and then they were all gone. This 2v2 from Panda and Mike, this just felt like vintage Jade Dragons, didn't it? I mean, these two guys have been the best duo in the SPL for years at this point. They're by far the most storied, and you just end up struggling this year overall. This feels like a return to form from them. I mean, Fine was dominant on this Achilles yet again. Just felt like the Tartarus Titans looked at what the Jade Dragons did yesterday and went, wow, the Bolts played bad, and that was it. Like, that's the only takeaway they had, and it wasn't giving enough credit to what the Jade Dragons were able to accomplish with their compositions.
I mean, the Dragons during the group stages struggled to find 4 wins total throughout the entirety. They've now found 4 in a row, essentially just doing the same thing all 4 games. They blanked the Bolts yesterday in game number 1. They nearly blanked the Titans, a team who previously was one of the more difficult teams as a whole to kill in the league. And they go up, what was it, like 17-1 was the final score at the end of the game here. And this has got to be the ultimate eye-opener now for the Tartarus Titans, going, okay, what we were doing before just does not work up against what the Jade Dragons have brought out here in these 2 days of play.
Gotta give Hero and Zeus respect, man. The Bolts, it only took them 1 game, and I think it's only going to take the Titans 1 game. I don't think Hurry is going to see this Zeus again the rest of the tournament. I really don't. Because, or, even if that's a dodgy pick instead of Camazotz, things look a lot different in my mind. Because that pick really wins that 1v1 hard. So maybe they could make that adjustment, but I just feel like when Hurry looks that good on that pick, you want to take it away from him. But then it becomes the problem of, okay, well, what do we do about Panda's AMC? This Achilles for Fine, okay. If we take away the Achilles like the Bolts did. Wow, got choked on something. If you take away the Achilles, then he has the Mulan, and he's going to dominate you on that pick as well. So it just feels very difficult to pick and ban against the Dragons right now. I don't think that they've got it all figured out. They aren't infallible, clearly, from what we've seen during the regular season. And this is the very beginnings of a meta. Metas change game to game sometimes, especially early in the infancy of a meta. And that's where we are right now. So, like we said, Tartarus Titans, they can show up, do their thing game 1, try and go with what they were during the group stages. And if it doesn't work, it's time to move on to what you've been practicing. I just hope that they've got something that is a little more recent ready for us in the tank.
This might be one of the giddiest I've seen you in a while, just because you're seeing the success of your favorite god come out here and just utterly.
No, I just think that it's a fresh new meta. I'm excited because it's playoff time.
No, it's because Zeus is in the meta.
Just because he's good doesn't mean I'm that excited about just that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Game number 2, Tartarus Titans, Jade Dragons. Something's got to change. So far, the Titans haven't changed that just yet. Until now, 3rd ban comes through. It finally will be that Zeus, coupled with a couple more bans over here at Hurry Wins Way, Sol and Zhongqi. And then on the opposite side, Jade Dragons, they don't need to change up anything that they did. They're going to take away the Odin, the Hell, and the Emoja one more time. And now it's back over to the Tartarus Titans to see what adjustments they make in game number 2. And that first adjustment is taking Sam off this Erlong Shen.
Makes sense. Sam was really good on this pick. This is the pick that Layers loves and has been very good on in his career, so I like this first pick for the Titans. But this is a very susceptible pick to counter picks on the other side, so it's not necessarily free for the Titans. We'll see what the Jade Dragons are able to pick to mess with that selection. And with triple banning Hurry, I wonder what direction he goes, because these were the 3 gods he played yesterday. He played a Zeus game, then a Zhong game, then a Sol game. Took all 3 gods away from him, and I think that the meta right now is really mid laner dependent, and not every mid laner is good with this build that is the optimal build. You have to be a mid laner that doesn't really need CDR. That's kind of the qualifier in my mind or a god that you can build breastplate on and not feel like a fool. So we'll see what Heroine decides to go to. I really don't think there are that many mages that abuse it as well as guys like Zeus and Shang.
On the opposite side here, Jade Dragons go for the Achilles and the Amuzin Cobb one more time, but we did see some flexibility with AMC yesterday. We saw some mid games, we saw some hunter games, so maybe there's potential that this AMC does go mid towards Hurrywin's way. They leave it up there at least as a flex pick. Even we've seen in the past some Achilles jungle, some Achilles support out of Mike actually, and now some Achilles solo. So a little bit of ambiguity so far here with the Jade Dragons in their first two. Goes back over to the Tartarus Titans now to make their next two selections, and two critical ones that they need to make here.
RDO was their first pick in game one. Benji not going beads was really bad for him, so maybe he just makes that adjustment, goes beads if it's a similar CC heavy composition, but the Erlong was a big part of that, and not having that is going to be better. I think that making sure that you get Paul on something that can utilize this new build, putting a lot of respect on Mike's Ganesh, and there's the other guy who's been playing it a lot this year, of course, is Aurora. So it makes some sense that they go with this Ganesh pick in order to take it away and make it a pseudo ban. But I think if I'm Mike, I'm going, hey, Ares does look kind of good here. You know, Mike not been an Ares player in a long time, but used to be way back in the day. So maybe he goes in that direction. But Xing Chen also looks pretty good to me. You know, you want to punish these non-CC immune ultimates, and yeah, that's the direction that he goes.
Yeah, a couple little buffs thrown Xing Chen's way. We saw some cooldown reduction on I think it's the hook slam that got a couple seconds taken off there. A lot of mana costs across the board. Furious Roar got like a 0.5 on the last rank, extra % damage thrown to that. So a little bit of buffs coming Xing Chen's way has made him a very potent pick. Honestly, we've seen a lot of success out of this god this weekend so far. But now that we go into the bans, it's Cthulhu. The first one out by the Jade Dragon, seeing that Morgan has come out. They haven't cared about the RTO, making sure to not allow the Titans to try and go to one of their tried and true comps.
Yeah, I like the Cthulhu ban. I think I'd ban RDO here as well, even though you beat it last time. It's just a pick that can cause problems for you, so I wouldn't mind a ban in that direction. Love the Osiris ban for the Tartarus Titans. This looks like a draft where they're giving the Dragons respect on what they were playing and being successful with. I think that you just take two pressure junglers out of Sam's hands in this situation. You already did so with the Erlong Shen. You've done so with Osiris as well. You know, what other picks does he play that lend itself to that pressure? You know, we've seen him play Thanatos in the past. We've seen him play a Willix in the past. They ban a god that he plays, but Susano isn't really a pressure jungler, so I think that the Dragon's probably pretty happy with being able to get what they want.
And it is an RDO for the last ban out of the Jade Dragon, so taking another shot towards the solo lane and doing what few teams have done in the past, is focusing their bans literally anywhere besides mid. You have the one singular hell ban, you have a ban against Aurora by the way of that Yamoja, and then 3 solo lane bans to try and put Benji as far down as he can in the priority of that solo lane. He's already got to potentially face off against this Achilles, and now the option goes back to the Jade Dragons. They've got Achilles, Amuzin Cobb, Xing Chen. The world is their oyster at this point on what they can pick, because we've seen what the flexibility of Amuzin Cobb is. Curious to see where this next pick is going to go.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you could go with an Afro comp. I think Afro typically does fairly well into what we see here for the Titans. So, you know, is that a Heroine pick? I'm not really sure, but historically he's been very flexible in what he wants to pick. So you could go with something in that direction. I think I'd let Sam get the counter pick here, because you already know what the mid jungle is. They go Serket. Okay, that's interesting. So it's got a very good matchup into the Erlong Shen, and I think it's pretty good against the Morgan as well. I don't love Serket up against Ganesh, because your full combo of blink in 2-1 ult does get interrupted very easily by that Ohm silence. So I don't love it into the Ganesh, but as far as the 1v1 jungle matchup goes, this is one of Erlong's worst.
When we saw Izanami come out of Cyclone Spin last time in game number 1 for the Tartarus Titans, do you think that might be an option that he goes back to? Or now that this Heimdall has been left open, do you maybe think that he goes towards the Heim?
Well, I think the Ganesh made a big difference in those kills that Panda got in those skirmishes in the duo lane. So he seemed fairly comfortable. It's a god that can actually out-pressure AMC in the early laning phase, which is few and far between. So it's certainly possible that that's the direction that Cyclone wants to go. We've also seen him go Chernabog in the past. Hachiman makes some sense. You know, this is a pick that can play defensively or offensively depending on how well your team gets off to their early start. And it looks like it is potentially going to be AMC mid. And now you've given Panda Cat this counter pick in the very last option. And Ho Yi, this is a pick that I think does very well into Erlong and Ganesh. Also pretty good into the Morrigan. Brings that extra bit of CC that you really like out of this composition because they already have a lot of it. Yes, they'd be very physical heavy, but you've got so much it's physical prot shred on Stinger now. It's 30%. So going physical heavy when it's an AMC with you doesn't feel quite as bad.
If it is this Ho Yi lock-in, I only have one concern, and that's just because of the win-loss rate that we've seen out of Ho Yi throughout the entirety of Phase 3. It was, what, like 1-14 or 1-15 at the end of the day. It was only Zapman who was able to get a single win on that god. But with how the Jade Dragons have been performing this weekend alone, and with all the things you brought up here with, tossing the AMC into here, maybe some high hopes for this Ho Yi pick.
Yeah, I think it's good up against their top 3 in particular. The Hachiman matchup's probably fine. Nike, you don't love picking double hunter in the Nike because barrier formation is 6 seconds of no for your auto attacks, and that's the vast majority of your damage. But you've got some CC in order to interrupt that. You've got Achilles stun, you've got Xing Chen knock up and ult, you've got Circuit CC. Those things can shut off that barrier formation fairly easily. I think that they've got plenty of damage for this composition and plenty of CC. It just does, if the strongest thing in the meta right now is Book of the Dead Mages, neither team really has one. So that's a little bit surprising with how this draft has gone. But like I said, if you're going double hunter, having an AMC be a core part of that makes a lot of sense.
Well, one of the things that, we struggled with the Morrigan in last game was transformation targets. You really only had the Camazotz. Is there a couple more options available here? I know we've seen a lot of Nike transformations in the past, but is that the only one that Morrigan has here in this game?
She has Circuit as well. Nike and Circuit are both pretty good. So you have a more offensive option in the Circuit and a more defensive option in the Nike, and that's usually all you need. I want to get a guaranteed kill, I transform into this god. I want to try and survive, I transform into this god. Or early game, I transform into this god. Late game, I transform into this god. So you've got to got options in that situation. I do think it's a better Morrigan game here for Paul, but you've got AMCBs that are going to reveal you really easily. You've got Ho Yi Mark that's going to keep you revealed really easily. I think that this could be difficult for him, but Paul's proven that he deserves the benefit of the doubt, especially on a god like the Morrigan.
It was a rough game one for the Titans trying to go up into the new meta draft. Do you think that this is a much stronger answer towards what the new meta provides that the Jade Dragons are running at here, or do you think that it's kind of in that similar wheelhouse?
I think this is another pretty explosive draft one way or the other. It's a lot like the Ares pick last game or ever. It's like a Ymir pick ever. Like, it's either really good or really bad, and there's very little in between. If Erlong, Shen, Ganesh get ahead, they just cage the AMC and Hurry dies every fight. It's very difficult for him to survive. They clearly were trying to make that happen because of their bans. But if the AMC gets ahead, if the Circuit gets ahead, the Ganesh is going to walk up, they're going to get CC chained, insta-killed by a Stinger, and Hurry's going to have it back in 12 seconds. So I think that the way this mid lane engagement goes, that mid 3v3, heroine safety, or lack thereof, is going to be pretty key to each team's success.
Well, let's see how the Tartarus Titans can perform in game number 2. Down 1-0 in the set in the best of 5. Can they bring it back here in game number 2?
That is the question for the Titans, a team that barely lost during the group stages. Honestly, is barely lost in Phase 3, it feels like, Mifflin. Yet they're down 1-0 right here. I think in our Caster Thoughts video, I had even said I'd be surprised if they lost 2 games, and I guess that's going to be put to the test right here, right now. We'll see how they're able to do. It was mentioned, though, that this AMC mid is, not going to have Book of the Dead available for heroine, so survivability might be a problem. Not going to see a Book of the Dead probably out of Paul because it doesn't fit with the Morrigan. A really big essential item, it feels like, for the last 2 days is just gone.
Yeah, not going to have any really avenues to pick that one up in this game, but maybe more so interesting is that the Jade Dragons seem to have taken a play from the Solar Scarabs book, going singular magical damage output, out of your support, just Xing Chen. Xing Chen, worth noting that he has had a couple of buffs towards his damage. Ferocious Roar now does a little bit more. Skyhook going to be on a slightly shorter cooldown, but maybe the most important change is AMC getting 30% prot shred to anyone he afflicts with Stinger. That cooldown is incredibly short, especially if you're able to pick the Stinger back up as well. You go for what is basically a full ability style of build with AMC out of mid, Transcendence, Crusher, things along those lines. So I think the Jade Dragons, although a very physically stacked team, still has the propensity to be able to find a lot of damage throughout every phase of the game, especially considering Prot Shred seems to be the name of the game. Sunder as the first selection for PBM.
And that Sunder is kind of twofold here. You're going to be dealing with a Nike late game, so that's already going to feel a little bit better for you. But like you said, Prot Shred, that Sovereignty, presumably first item pickup that's going to be there for Aurora, is going to not maybe do as much as you would like it to. But it does feel a little slower, right? I mean, Amu's and Cobb, especially when you had highlighted like a Transcendence early on, I'm not looking at Whirlwind as fighting as early as they did last time. They went for a really, really quick gank and between the Tier 1, Tier 2 to get the first blood for the Dragons. I just don't feel that kind of thing happening. Well, maybe not mid. Maybe it's going to be in solo lane. Benji gets stunned out. There's going to be the taunt, the damage. A couple more autos is all it takes. First blood for Fine OK.
And Benji made the sole mistake of using Leap in lane even one time. That is unfortunate for the Tartarus Titans solo laner. Cyclone Spin takes a fair deal of damage here as well. Thought maybe PBM had leveled up the Skyhook at level 2, but instead it is Ferocious Roar, which means that there is not a whole lot of lockdown potential up against Cyclone in this lane. The Jade Dragons in the early game can essentially play this standard. They can play as aggressively as they want because you haven't already got the physical defense stack from the Tartarus Titans.
True.
So as of right now, this Jade Dragons draft is probably at one of the stronger facets of the game. I'm expecting almost a bell curve in that the early game is going to be very strong for them, the mid game is going to be a little bit weaker, and then the late game is going to be pretty strong as well. So expect the Jade Dragon to make their moves here or much later.
Maybe a little dip in the middle where the Titans can take control. And that's a important part to be able to take advantage of. I know Ganesh was something that was highlighted, the Ganesh and the Erlang Shen, highlighted very heavily there on the desk. Ganesh doesn't do too much this early on. He's just kind of along for the ride. That Ohm can be very deadly in the right circumstances. There's ultimately no crazy amount of control. I mean, maybe something happening here in mid, especially with Sam being aggressive. He's going to be able to get the beads once again. That's 2 ganks, 2 beads, and he still gets the taunt, and they get the kill. That is about as perfect as you could get it.
Well, the Jade Dragons have got the lead yet again in the early game off of the efforts of Sam for Soccer and Sam for Soccer alone. The unsung hero, the jungler for the Jade Dragons, goes no kills, 2 assists, but it's just fine because the team's flourishing.
He's just being nice to his laners, right? I'll let you guys get the kills. I know you need it. We can pad the stats.
Yeah, you got to get those KDAs up, all right? The Jade Dragons have had a tough stint recently and now trying to pad out those stats. But I think the Jade Dragons, if they are able to keep this pace up, I think that bell curve starts to tip downward in the next 3, 4, 5 levels. Around level 9 is where I'd say the Tartarus Titans really do start to feel like they could start making proactive plays, except for Layers, who can get involved just about whenever he wants by nature of being Erlang Shen. So the Tartarus Titans can either do one of 2 things. They can allow this to keep happening. They can keep trying to get proactive in these lanes and allow these ganks to ring true from San for Soccer. Or, I think more likely, they kind of hit the brakes. The Tartarus Titans say, okay, look. They've got a 4 Fizz stack composition. We just got to get to this late game phase. We'll get our defense available. If we can just survive the initial onslaught of all this defense shred, we should just win the team fight. And in order to do so, you just have to wait it out for a little bit. Slow down the pace of this game. Stem that bleeding.
CC immunity is probably going to be crucial throughout a lot of this. We've seen beads burned in solo. Benji's got those back. Could have been burned right there if they had the right opportunity. That's going to be a secure there for Benji, so he's able to maintain his own blue buff. Well played by him to get aggressive where he is. Layers, you had just mentioned, can get aggressive whenever he wants, and that's a good taunt. That's a good follow-up. Paul gets credit for the kill, but that one's all courtesy of Layers.
I wonder if had Hurrywin connected the Stinger, he might have been able to actually turn around that engagement or at least do enough damage to dissuade Layers from sticking around aggressive, but instead loses the beads, loses the ultimate, doesn't get the chance to pick up that Stinger again, so that ultimate cooldown is significant. And 2 minutes without that defensive relic means that Layers can circle back and do it all over again.
That is a nice key opportunity for Layers to be able to find this advantage. And you had said level 9. If Layers can get his advantage going now and get Paul to that level 9 mark sooner, it feels like that's going to be a much bigger opportunity for the Titans. Mike's going to go ahead and show face over here and try to get aggressive, locking down Layers. They secured the enhanced buffs. There's going to be the Dharmic Pillars. They're trying to kill off Aurora right now, and they're going to toss him back. What a great double combo. 3 ults, and they get the kill, and now they're chasing down Benji. Benji's low. The poison did spread, but the shield is going to be enough to keep him alive. That Sunder chased him down, though, is definitely going to make him worry a little bit. as we go on in this game.
Man, just so much chain CC from the Jade Dragons. It's a taunt in from Sam, toss him backwards, stunned by Fine OK, Skyhook on the tail end. You got Whirlwind of Rage and Steel. If Hurry wins there, you're getting crippled, slowed, beezed upon as well. This composition from the Jade Dragons is so good when they're able to kind of Voltron up together and utilize all that CC at the exact same time. There's been major threat to the beads of the Tartarus Titans so far. Aurora's has his burned out, so despite having Sovereignty early on, despite having that additional layer of survivability, of not going towards Thieves and instead getting your defense immediately, he's under risk.
I like the way they're playing this. Dragons, even though the Titans were the ones walking into their jungle, still willing to show face and fight just to ward them away. Here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Now, when I think of Xing Chen, first off, a great pickup for the Dragons here since they went double Hunter. But the Furious Roar, you know, being able to mitigate basic attack damage late game, that's something that's going to affect Layers a little bit as well. Like, I mean, he's going to be maybe more in the front line and hit him more than it hits Cyclone Spin. Does that hurt the Erlong Shen enough to make it a big sweep for the Dragons?
It's a massive difference maker because Erlong Shen in the late game really is, all right, I'm going to hit my pin, I'm going to knock him up with the turtle, I'm going to pop my one, and God, I hope he dies before he's able to fight back. And generally, that's just simply not going to be the case as long as PBM is there and applying the Ferocious Roar. You're taking much less damage, that damage reduction all the way up to 50% when that ability is maxed out. Half your damage is essentially gone. Erlong Shen really going to struggle up against that one, but it's not just the Erlong, it's also Paul to a certain extent. A lot of these Morrigan kills in the base stance are finished off with those basic chains. Well, he's going to struggle.
Well, spin to win. Layers gets pulled back. Panda Cat was laying in wait. Great Dharmic Pillars, but it's just going to keep them locked in there with Layers. They get the kill, and unfortunately for Aurora, he's not going to be able to get the disengage he needed. Their jungler falls right in front of his eyes.
That's tough stuff, man. As Benji gets dropped down and execute Threshold, I thought maybe we'd see Fine OK go for an aggressive play, but I'm pretty sure Benji still has the lead. Fine.
Oh, he's going to do
Playing
it.
annoying, though.
Just making sure he can't back. That's all he wants to do. And like you said, playing annoying. I'm going to make sure that you have to waste a little more time here with me. And he's at that threshold. I mean, you had highlighted it. A little bit of damage is all it'll take for Fine OK to be able to get that kill. And that's why he's so comfortable flirting with death under the tower.
Yeah, and even if Benji still has that ultimate available, and he does, you can just execute through it. So as long as he's in that threshold, Fine OK is a huge threat.
Oh, Layers, welcome back to the jungle, buddy. That is just going to be a clean kill. Sam drops his ult for it, but it is about as easy as you can want. One death on left, one death on right. And now the jungle is free for the taking for the Dragons.
What a major frustration point for the Tartarus Titans. It just feels like there's nowhere safe on the map to farm, barring maybe the duo lane where both PBM and Panda Cat are stuck.
Now they're trying to do it. Panda Cat doesn't have any mana to work with, so that's probably making it a lot easier of an opening. No purple buff coming up anytime soon. Poor Benji, just once his blue isn't going to be able to get that one. And he just wants to back. He just wants to chill in his lane. And I think they're going to finally give him that opportunity. Fine, okay, stay out of that tower line. He's going to push the wave up. It feels like, once again, similar to last game, it's only the duo lane that has the success going for him right now.
Yeah, Cyclone Spin and Aurora trying their best to try and make something happen throughout the early, and so far it's netted Cyclone Spin about a half-level lead over Panda Cat, who just now ticks over towards level 10. Aurora has been sitting in lane a lot more, so he should have a slight experience advantage, but despite that, it's PBM stacking up the Thebes, so you'd think Aurora would want to be the one getting involved a little bit earlier on with a faster build. Unfortunately for the Tartarus Titans, he's kind of been relegated to hanging out in the duo lane or trying to peel out for Layers in the jungle, who has been getting legitimately accosted by Sam for Soccer. It's actual cyberbullying, what I've been seeing. This might be like the third back camp that Aurora, or Layers has been able to pick up on the right-hand side of the map. The Jade Dragons are playing around their pressure, and they're doing it so well. Fine OK was losing the 1v1 to Benji in the early. For the first 3-4 minutes, Benji had a slight lead. So Sam for Soccer says, oh, word, you struggling? Maybe I show up. And he has, and now Fine's up a level, as is Sam.
And he's 3-0 as of right now. Fine OK is more than happy with it. The 004. Sam has not taken a single kill. Very kind-hearted man, making sure that it goes to his teammates. You're shaking your head.
Dude,
Can't
I
believe a jungler would do that.
No, he didn't do it on purpose.
Oh, yeah.
There's
They're
no
getting
world.
stolen from him.
Yeah, Sam for Soccer wants those kills. Make no mistake. He would love to have them. This is one of the largest frustration points I used to have as a player. Is you just gank, everything's going right, and you look at your own slash line, you're like, wait, why am I not further ahead? Sure, 2 levels is still pretty nice for Sam for Soccer, but had even 2 of those kills landed on him, this could be a 3-4 level lead for the Sir Cat.
That would be nuts to have to deal with. Did finish the air indict. Hey, guess what? Layers is going for the 4th back camp. He didn't get the big harpy. That actually goes the way of Sam there. And now FineOK steals away a little bit. He's the one who's isolated, surrounded by 3. Good knock up from Benji. But this is exactly what the Dragons want. Stay around and fight, see what happens. This blue buff is going to potentially get 4-man split, but it is still stripped away, and Benji can't do anything about it.
Yeah, 4 split better than just not getting it at all. The Tartarus Titans attempted to show up in numbers. The only one who doesn't make the legitimate rotation is Paul through mid. He instead pushes a wave into tower, which should cost Hurrywind a little bit of his farm. Now Paul benefiting from a slight lead, but Benji has not had any help over here in the solo.
It has been an unfortunate tale for him. Paul goes aggressive, but he's going to get rooted down. There's Dark
Hold up.
That's going to get the tick, but now you're getting tossed back into the tower. This is a good fight, but Hurrywind goes down. They don't have the follow-up damage necessary despite the low health bars, despite the damage available, and the great setup from Mike. The Dragons are just a little too late.
Panda Cat tries to go for the ricochet bounce. Instead, it's San Soccer, PBM, and Fine going for the dive.
That's going to be a good grab on the Cyclone Spin, but Sam just gets deleted. Didn't even have the opportunity to finish the animation for his ult before he gets taken down. That's 2 good kills for the Titans.
The Tartarus Titans kind of realized that San Soccer was not there for the engagement. Hurrywind nearly turns around the fight onto Paul, almost kills him right as he transforms, but transformation target's looking pretty good for Paul. That survivability all there, and Hurrywind maybe less than 100 damage away from turning around that entire engagement. San Soccer nowhere in range to rotate in until much, much later. By the time he gets there, the Tartarus Titans had already reset to their tier 1 tower. Sam goes for the dive anyway, and, well, we saw how that one crumbled out. He falls down, and all of a sudden, despite every single gank, barring the very last one going well for San Soccer, it's dead even in the jungle. Yet again, both junglers sitting at level 11.
And pushing towards that 2,000 gold mark in favor of the Dragons. But 13 minutes in, that's way more manageable than the, 4K in game number 1. So definitely a lot more work for the Titans here. Definitely feels like these last couple of minutes they've got their feet back under them, and they're able to push back. Very similar to the curve that you were highlighting. I mean, this is following that bell curve almost to a note. We'll see if the Dragons can pull it back towards the late game. Like you said, right now, this might as well be even. This Pyromancer is going to make it. That official 2,000 gold mark there for the Jade Dragons. But level experiences, I mean, there were 2 level leads on the sides of the Dragons earlier. Now I only see 1 massive one in favor of FineOK. It's just 1 level, 2 levels as he ticks to 14. Otherwise, the leads are in favor of the Titans.
Yeah, and I'm expecting the Tartarus Titans to try and close up that gold gap pretty shortly around this Gold Fury. They've got great ability burn it, Dharmic Pillars with the defense shred, as well as being one of the higher damaging abilities from Guardians, means that you can really just remove that neutral objective incredibly fast. But that is true for both sides. When you're running Double Hunter or Hoagie AMC, well, objectives don't stand very long.
The Ohm was just procced by Aurora, so that's going to be on cooldown for a second. Not long enough that it's going to matter for the Dragons here, since they're not getting aggressive immediately onto him. And I had to, looking at the solo lane, can we talk about how the Slumber Party Nike is so like counterintuitive to how hard she is hitting and how much she does in this team fight? That was just throwing me off watching them box back and forth. Unfortunately right now, the pillow fight's going in favor of FineOK. Gold Fury started up by the Titans. You had highlighted this and said that it was going to be a big point of contention for them. Could get taken away. No, Mike's going to be a little too late. They're not even going to have the opportunity. Titans managed to take some of the gold back in their favor.
Yeah, the Titans needed that infusion of gold, essentially having the gold lead that the Jade Dragons were holding on to just beforehand. And now with both neutral objectives gone, I think that might legitimately favor the Jade Dragons. It's just kind of considering the fact that the Tartarus Titans are likely much stronger at this point in the game by nature of draft. They would probably like to have had another neutral objective where they could have forced an engagement, be it the Pyromancer where it's a little bit lower risk, or even the Gold Fury if the Dragons showed up. Instead, the objective goes down for free, and there's nowhere for either one of these teams to go to push their lead.
And unfortunately, Benji's still kind of getting bullied over there in the short lane. Your dual lane is successful, but it doesn't amount to too much. The Draugur's a nice buff on your towers, although I haven't seen it make as huge a difference as it could, right? Or at this point, with no Fire Giant, yeah, your tier 1s are safe. They're fine. But late game, that's where things maybe fall apart for you a little bit more. Panda Cat's been farming just fine. Cyclone's been farming just fine. They're both pretty much right next to each other, although a little bit of gold seemingly in favor of Panda Cat here, despite the gold in hand 2600 that Cyclone Spin is sitting on. It is all up to, this mid 3v3 right now, where Paul in these right moments has been finding some really, really good stuns set up off of layers. The Dragons haven't had much answer for that when it's happened.
You see the difference between Panda Cat and Cyclone Spin's build. Panda Cat essentially forced to go towards the Executioner, which got a buff in this most recent patch, now up to 40 power when you've got that item built out. But he has to because of the passive. He needs that penetration. It applies not only for himself, but it's also going to help out Hurrywin, Sam, FineOK, all going to benefit from the passive Executioner, whereas the Tartarus Titans with a much more standard composition, double magical, can allow Cyclone Spin to go towards Wind Demon, getting crit, some penetration, everything you need from that item. And he's going to deal more damage to objectives. He's going to win the 1v1 if Panda Cat decides to take it as well. I think that this build now really does say the Tartarus Titans have hit their power curve. Now's the time where they're feeling nearly at their strongest. I'm imagining we see Cyclone Spin try and make some aggressive plays.
Now here's something we haven't seen in a long time. Shell, of course, is common up against 2 auto attackers. But Height of the Nemean has been picked up by Benji. A while ago, it got its passive changed and kind of got knocked down. People didn't pick it up, but admittedly still feels pretty good against a lot of basic attackers.
It does. It's super annoying. It's especially good into Cirquette. She applies her passive with her abilities and then first auto attack burns it off. Well, Nemean blocks those.
Mike might be in a little bit of trouble, isn't able to grab layers, loses a lot of his health bar, but 2 leaps gets him on out of there. But is it going to be enough? No, Benji with a great rotation picks him up before he can disengage. FineOK chasing people down, gets a stun, but now he is surrounded by 2. Sam's with him, but not really doing too much. It seems like the Dragons do not want to fight this.
Yeah, the whole conversation there was Fine saying, hey, I might be able to execute a roar. He's pretty low. And Sam saying, no.
No.
I would love to not be fighting this. Speed buff's up, and that's where I want to be. Cyclone Spin makes the rotation over. Seems like the Titans want this tier 1.
It's going to be a difficult prospect for them. 3-man grouping from the Dragons around this tier 1 in mid. They don't have the minions to work with. Didn't even notice the tier 1 in mid fell for the Titans, so they do lose a little bit of pressure from that one. Hasn't necessarily amounted to too much, no big invades that have happened just yet. Benji caught out in the jungle, wrong side of the map, man. This is the Chaos territory. Sam is going to lock him up. Ult has been used. They need to be able to find him, but a good pin. Even better lockdown from FineOK. The execute range is there, not even needed. They get the kill onto Benji and continue the chase. They're looking for layers. Doesn't have a lot of mana to work with. Hurry, Mike, in the jungle, rotating over. They want this kill, and they're going to be able to find it. Get the jungle, get the solo, and they lock him down. Now that tier 1 in right goes away, and they're going to continue a little bit of a skirmish in the jungle.
This could be a straight-up Fire Giant attempt. Benji dead for 30, Layers dead for 35, and all off the back of one overextension. The Jade Dragons were teetering on the edge, and now they're looking at the largest neutral objective.
They started up just like you asked. Paul's going to be over here. What big damage from Paul, but he's not able to find the isolation kill onto Sam.
Point toss
is just okay in this one, and now the Giant low enough. Panda Cat's getting close. Dragon secure that one. Cyclone Spin goes aggressive, though, is able to get 1 kill. Sam is low. His back canceled, and now they're going to go in for the kill. They're going to lose Hurrywin. No, he's trying to turn it around. Unfortunately for him, he falls. Cyclone so low. FineOK trying to do whatever he can, but the Titans are fighting this one back. They're chasing him down, and they're making the Dragons regret that call.
PBM nearly finishes off Cyclone Spin, but might have just put himself out of position. Paul on the chase. If he connects this stun, that could be it.
That is another kill in the pocket. 7-7. Now the Titans, though, feeling a little bit more in control. Fire Giant stripped off of 3 members. A great team fight for them. Cyclone Spin goes big with his engage at the tail end of that. Still a 2K lead. Well, just under, actually. Now about 1,000 lead for the Dragons. And that looks like it's going to disappear pretty quickly. Oni Fury in the eyes of the Titans. We're back at even.
Man, the Jade Dragons, I wonder, had Sanford Soccer decided to get a little bit more proactive in that fight, just walk up, auto attack, Cyclone Spin with Hurrywin. Maybe Hurrywin lives a little bit longer, but instead, Hurry essentially puts himself in a 1v1 position up against Cyclone Spin, and Cyclone Spin plays more Hunter than Hurrywin does, so also lands a little bit more auto attacks as well. And the Jade Dragons, almost stubbornness after that point. FineOK goes back in, tries to finish off Cyclone, wasn't successful in doing so. It does at least disengage. And then PBM tries to do the exact same thing, but he falls for his attempt. The Jade Dragons desync a little bit off of the back of a brilliant Fire Giant play. I think, at most, you have to lose 2 members. The Jade Dragons probably make that call realizing that at least 2 of us have to die if we're going to get this Fire Giant, but instead it's 3. I think they could have cut their losses a little bit sooner.
Especially ending up losing one of your important carries, maybe 2 if you really want to slice it that way. I also have to give a little bit of slack to Hurry. If I played 4 games in a row where I had Book of the Dead, I'm going to take that kind of positioning too, right? I'm not going to be too worried about it. I'm going to walk up to you and forget that I'm not going to get this massive shield when I start to die. Dragons managed to secure the Pyromancer 2 games in a row, and now they're going in for even more. Layers is getting burned down, but Sam is chasing Cyclone Spin. He is trying to get it. He needs the auto attack. He's able to get it, and he gets rid of the Hunter, and a great taunt keeps him going. Layers is low. The pin is there, but it doesn't matter. Paul dies in the backline. Sam has been distracting, and Sam has done his job. 3 down on the Titans.
Layers used his transformation earlier, is able to get it back up. Bounce, no good from Panda Cat, but the Jade Dragons turn around yet another engagement. Great play from Sanford Soccer to dive the back line and distract Layers, and then the rest of the team were able to play around Hurrywin, who is the recipient of all the dive from the Tartarus Titans, and as you said, does not have Book of the Dead, so he does die, but at what cost? 3 members and the Jade Dragons knocking on the door of the Titan.
And as weird as it is to say this, despite the fact that it's not on Panda Cat, they do still technically have Fire Giant for Fino-K, and he is under this Phoenix with his team. Layers, Aurora putting up a defense here, and they are the only
bounce
to do what damage is coming out. Layers is just gone. This Ho-Yi win rate was garbage through phase 3. Panda Cat's trying to change that here and now.
I've never seen that bounce before. Not once have I ever seen it used that way. I don't think Layers had either. Man, that is nuts. Panda Cat, so well played, well placed. I don't think if they don't get that kill, I'm not sure that they get that Phoenix.
This was a great dive from Sam. I mean, first off, a great target, but like he kept 3 people on him.
He did, and then he spreads the poison to 3. Layers can't re-engage, Aurora can't. He almost turns around the kill, is able to survive as well. And you can see just on the tail end, sure, Hurrywin died, but who cares?
You know what? The Dragons, they did a lot of that last year as well. It was if one of us dies, typically in mid lane, then who cares? They played a lot that way this year as well. Well, they've got 5 seconds left on that Fire Giant. I almost legitimately forgot they had it after that fight because it was just wiped off of the maybe quote-unquote important members to sustain off of it. And now that finally fades away from Sam and Fine, so a minute left before that respawns. We got a little over that for a Fury to come back. And of course, Pyromancer's in the same area. The Dragons have control of the map and the goal.
I'd like to apologize to the fans at home. I had not been paying perfect attention to Hurrywin's build. Take a peek at that 3rd item selection. Winged Blade picked up. If you're getting dove continually, that's pretty nice, especially against the dive that the Tartarus Titans have. Cyclone Spin, initiating with ultimate, you're going faster now. If you get ticked by Dharmic Pillars, you're going faster now. If Benji hits you with his ultimate, you're going faster now. And here's the thing about all those abilities. They're using them on Hurrywin every single time. So that's going to add so much survivability, especially with this Death's Embrace pickup as well. Now he doesn't really essentially need to pick up lifesteal. It's just straight up percentage HP returned on auto attacks landed. The Jade Dragons mid laner might not have Book of the Dead, but this is a close second. This might just be the physical equivalent.
The physical equivalent. Doesn't give him the same shield, but, you know, health is nice, I guess, at the end of the day, and movement speed is fantastic. So we give 2 thumbs up for that one. Fire Giant's going to be respawning here in just a second. Just finished the animation. And they're hanging around. They get the Scorpion on their side. It's just a little bit of a farm game, but look at this positioning and look at the wards that are covering. All very deep on the Titan side. Not as many covering the inverse. The Dragons are going to be able to float free, and they've started up the Fire Giant for now.
And it's burning pretty quickly. Benji spotted it out, so now the Tartarus Titans know the HP. Reset by the Jade Dragons, but no engagement just yet.
That's going to be Sam leaping in, but a good stop from Aurora. Stops it from going anywhere. Sam has to back off. Ult's still available, but beads have now been burned off of the jungle. Sam uses and loses some utility.
It's a slow pull from the Jade Dragons. PBM making great use of the HP 5 from Jing Shen's passive, essentially as a sustainer to tank up that Fire Giant, re-engage, and then force the Tartarus Titans to take some damage. Layers has shown himself on the mini-map, so the Dragons realize that Erlang Shen is not, in fact, behind them. Instead, it's Benji the target.
Trying to force out some utility. They do get the leap, and again, a good taunt at the end of it. Layers gets aggressive. Layers is taking a lot of damage, but Hurrywin is the target, and Hurrywin trades one out just to make sure he doesn't fall, but PBM has gone with him. Cyclone Spin's got himself a double kill. He is locked up, isolated, but the damage is still good and in his favor. Fino-K's trying to do everything.
What a jump!
And that's a great leap from Sam, but it doesn't get the kill just yet. One more hit is all it will take to kill off Cyclone, and Fino-K finally is able to get there, but they lose the jungle. It's a 3-for-2 trade, and now Panda Cat's all alone. They lose their fourth. The Dragons end up taking a bad fight.
The Jade Dragons just were a little too stacked up in that engagement. You'd think if PBM's hitting a 4-man, 3-man ultimate, whatever it was that he got in that fight, you're probably just winning it. Take a peek at the beads cooldowns for the Tartarus Titans. Just about every single one of them in sync. Got to think it was a 3-man ultimate from him, but still not enough. You burned the beads, but you didn't win. You didn't have the damage afterward. Hurrywind is able to at least return damage into layers off that initial engagement, but does not survive long enough to find the full value. Stanford Soccer makes a hero play. I wouldn't say accidental, but I wouldn't say on purpose either to leak the stun from Paul. But it's just not enough. The Tartarus Titans had superior positioning in that fight. Dharmic Pillars was massive. Benji goes massive as well. Panda Cat was not in a position to follow up with damage, and the Jade Dragons crumble.
Fine, okay, was cut out in the jungle. If it had been literally anybody there with a Roar or with Benji, other than the same person, the frontliner, I think that could have been something, but ultimately it was 2 frontliners ganking 1 frontliner, and that didn't really amount to much.
And you nailed it. You've absolutely nailed it.
Yeah, right on the head, baby.
They got the Primal Fury this time, so now Fire Giant and Pyromancer going to be a little bit easier for the Order team to take. But it's a neutral territory. Jade Dragons do not have a massive lead anymore. The Tartarus Titans are essentially even as far as experience and builds go. So this next fight is honest. This might be the most honest engagement that we've seen this game. 27 minutes in, both teams lining up against each other in this all-important Game 2. Look, whoever wins this one puts themselves in a very good position. If the Jade Dragons win up 2-0, that is mentally stifling for the Tartarus Titans. If the Tartarus Titans win this one, you've tied up the set, you've got momentum on your side, everything riding on what I would assume is probably the last team fight of this game. If either one of these guys cleanly win it out, it should open up the doors for either a Titan siege attempt or at least an enhanced Fire Giant if we wait another couple minutes.
Fast approaching 28 minutes in, 900 gold is all that separates them in favor of the Dragons as of right now. And relics are starting to come back up. A second ago, it was just topsy-turvy. If a fight had broken out, who knows who's going to be successful. Now, though, you're starting to get all of your beads, your Aegises, and what have you back and available for a lot of these players. But it does open up a conversation. I mean, right now, Mifflin, I completely missed this. Final K is 6-0-5.
Yeah, but all those kills should be Sam for Soccer's.
Okay, so Sam's 8-2-7
yeah,
is really what
honestly.
you're saying.
Well, he should be 8-0-7. Those 2 deaths only came because he didn't have the kills.
Right.
Playing around. Fine, okay. Obviously having a great game here and has a ton of survivability in the build as well. Bulwark of Hope is going to help him out a lot, making sure that he can just dive as far as he wants in the majority of these fights. Paul essentially just has to play around Fine OK, not against him or with him, because this Morgan doesn't really have a great matchup into Achilles. It's the Jade Dragons grouping up first on the Fire Giant, and that seems to have been a common thread through all of these neutral objective pulls. But instead, it's the Pyromancer, the lesser of the two, that we're looking at.
Yeah, Heartseeker has been finished there for Sam and Hurry. That's going to help out killing off this Pyromancer pretty quickly. Not able to get answered there by the Titans. And it seems like something small, but if anybody gets poked out, that might just save their re-engage against the Titans. Paul's engaged in mid, and that's going to be the good lockdown. What a great ult, but a better transformation right now. Paul into the Nike, gets tossed back to the fishes. The sharks looking for the blood in the water, but he's going to be able to disengage. Lair is now the one who is isolated, but he's not going to be the one who's taken down. Instead, Cyclone Spin is going here in terms of damage, but no kills as of yet. Sam, PBM, both incredibly low, both as of right now out of this. Lair's trying to control and lock down Fine-OK, and the Dragons get out of there somehow?
Were the Dragons the one on the back foot? How does Paul survive? How does Stanford Soccer get out of there?
How any of that happened.
Yeah, PBM walks away, limps back to base, but at the end of the day, it's the Tartarus Titans with the superior positioning around the Fire Giant right now. They could look to pull this one out, but with Layers back in base, their objective burn isn't that great. Cyclone Spin, not exactly healthy right now, doesn't have the ultimate available, so doesn't want to stick around either. It's the Jade Dragons who reset first and re-establish positioning around the Fire Giant. They don't have the bird's eye view, though. They don't know how many members of the Tartarus Titans are hovering nearby, so they can't feel confident in pulling it.
They don't have a lot of ward coverage over here. I see one sentry there towards the left of Sam, and that's about it. Now just replacing one, so they catch a roar. They know Benji. They pulled the FG. And they're getting the damaged belt. With 2 hunters, you have to feel it's burning fast. And it
50.
is burning quickly enough. Half health, they're going to go ahead and leash that one. Start up the engagement. Aggression onto Aurora. Not taking a lot of damage, though. Sam goes in, gets a taunt. Sam has ult, but has not used it yet. Execute, not going to
Double
be
stun!
available for Fine. Okay, good knock-up. Sam takes too much damage from dashing through the Dharmic Pillars, but he's out alive, and that is good peel from Mike. The Dragons, once again, are able to get out of this one. I might have spoke too soon, though. Fine, okay, in trouble. Finally taken down, and he's going to be the first one finally shut down in this game.
Paul just biding his time throughout that entire engagement, was hovering on the entrance to mid lane on the bottom right-hand side of the map, and eventually walks in, finds the double stun onto both Fine OK and Sanford Soccer, crushing the aggression of the Jade Dragons. He has gone unchecked, Paul has, throughout this entirety of the match. 5-2-5 for the Morrigan, and somebody's got to start hunting him. Somebody's got to get eyes on this guy if the Jade Dragons want to win these engagements, and I think it essentially has to be Sanford Soccer. Sam's been playing in the front line more often than not. He's just got to be on Paul duty from here on out.
Now this Phoenix, wow, burned down so fast by the Titans. They got the tier 2 in right as well. This Fire Giant 5 strong and 4,000 gold lead. I think for the first time this game, they have control of what is now the gold. And they're going to be able to extend that even further in their favor. Yeah, you can see that. A little bit of a dip. What is that, 20 minutes in? And otherwise all red all the time. 5,000 gold. They're going to knock down the middle Phoenix with no contest as well. Benji gets caught out, and they're dealing a lot of damage. They get the shield, and that's going to be a big pickup. Mike tries to pull him back into the Phoenix, but it's not going to be enough to lock down the Titans. They get out of this one alive.
Mike burns 2 sets of beads there, perfectly synced up for Benji and Aurora, but here's the thing about how they're both frontliners. They are, so you're not really feeling great about dedicating that ultimate to them. Burning off those relics, although nice, isn't going to be very easy to exploit because with the current positioning, the map state, the game state, it's not the Jade Dragons who are going to be choosing the next couple of engagements. It's the Tartarus Titans, so they've got a couple of options available to them. The Tartarus Titans can head back to base, reset, spend up all that gold, potentially finish up some pretty significant power spikes. Polynomicon finish for Paul, as well as a red pot picked up, so whoever he closes gap on is going to die expeditiously. Layers gets a little bit more defense online as well. Even a Roar picking up a red pot. All those relics should be leveled up. And by the time the Tartarus Titans regroup and start looking towards the last 2 remaining structures of the Jade Dragons, Tier 2 and Phoenix on the left side of the map, well, those beads should be back and available. So I think this is a play that you should expect from the Jade Dragons. They want to force a fight while they have a slight advantage, and it's right here.
Yeah, roaming in the jungle together. All they need is some sort of lockdown. Mike was just shy of a little bit of it, but no, goes deep. Immediately was looking for Cyclone Spin. Layers is now in the midst of it. It's a 5v5. They're all grouped up over in the duo lane, and Layers is taking a lot of the damage. Hurry in the background is going to be the one who ends up low, but he is still alive. Sam for Layers is the trade. They get rid of Aurora, but they lose Panda Cat in the process. It's a 2-for-2, bouncing back and forth. Cyclone Spin is low. Fine OK's in a good position to try and capitalize on it, but he had to use his ult
blink
for the disengage. Good blink gets him out of there. He's going to loop around. Ward is there. He sees Cyclone's low health, but he's got Paul to deal with, Benji to contend with. Fine OK's in a 1v3, and he is just distracting at this point. He's going to fall. It's just a matter of when. Good stun from Cyclone. Good kill from Paul. And they end up having an unfavorable trade that favors out the Titans.
Final K goes massive there. He's the reason the fight goes as well as it does. He buys an additional 20 seconds for the Jade Dragons to respond. The Tartarus Titans now have had their push squashed, essentially. They've only got 1 minute left on that Fire Giant power play. Final K played that as close to perfect as you could ask.
Now, despite all of that going so overwhelmingly in his favor there for Fine OK, still dies, I should say. And now loses this left side Phoenix. That is all 3 down for the Dragons. Layers, Aurora just now respawn. Fire Giant, this power play, 30 seconds left before that dissipates. And they're going to take a page out of the Dragons book. They're just going to lay in wait for a little bit. I don't see anybody taking too many steps forward, at least while they're waiting there. But I guess this is going to be a test of their patience more than anything, because Hurry is taking steps forward. Hurry's gonna be in danger. Cyclone Spin goes for the engage. There's the knockup. PBM's taking a lot of damage, but so is Cyclone Spin. Hurry Wind is dead. Mike is dead, and Cyclone Spin still running forward. Finally, someone stops him, but Panda Cat, it costs him his life, and it's a 2v4 to defend the Titans.
Cyclone Spin simply lives too long. Can Sanford Soccer and Fine OK do it on their own? I don't think so.
That's the biggest question, and honestly, maybe the right answer. It doesn't look like things are going their way. Dharmic Pillars going to help deal with this health bar. The Titans are able to help lock this down. The Titans falling. They have no chance here for the Dragons, and the Titans tie this one up.
What a back and forth game. Worth noting, we got a different look at the Jade Dragons. That's not the Zeus opwash that we saw yesterday. This is a double ADC composition, something we haven't really seen from them in the past, and it looked pretty good up against what the Tartarus Titans were doing. And the Tartarus Titans essentially got a draft that I think fits their playstyle perfectly. It's not a huge adaptation to Caesar 8.11.
Yeah.
It's very similar to something we could have seen in 8.9 or 8.10, but it works out here and it evens up the set. The Jade Dragons, though, should have left an impression. Now you have to concern yourself with the ability to adapt to both of these drafts.
Yeah, I mean, you looked at it, you had mentioned, but not having Book of the Dead, it was what, Sol, Zhang Zeus bands at the top? I mean, Hurwin was sniped out immediately, so maybe that's something that they can change. But the Titans adapt perfectly. This Morrigan has been something that's kind of been a question mark. Yesterday didn't find too much success. Game 1 was kind of absent for a lot of it. Does it just matter what's around her, or do you think we're going to see more of her?
The Morgan's just good, man.
She's just good.
That god is just so good. And it's not even that you have to build around her. You have to draft against her. She's taking everything you're playing. She's playing whatever you're playing best. So if you're on the Tartarus Titans, it's usually Camazotz out of the jungle that the Morgan is transforming into because Layers loves that pick. But I think this god might be a must-ban.
We'll figure it out. Well, actually, we don't have to figure anything out. No. The Titans and the Dragons will figure that one out. We got a tie set here. We'll see who can take Game 3 right after this.
I'll be back, okay?
The score is all tied up now between these two teams, and with Worlds on the horizon for the winner of this set, it's all important to get those wins as soon as you can. But with Worlds on the horizon, that means that we've got some really cool stuff leading up to Worlds, like the SWC bundle that you can pick up yourself at shop.hi-rezstudios.com to pick up all the cool things available in this bundle. What is the physical things that you get here? We can get a cool hoodie. You can get an awesome wall banner autographed by all of our pro players. And then you also get a postcard with an original piece of artwork and the Season 8 digital loot pack, which includes PK Scylla, Divine Wind Gilgamesh, Elkin Cernanos, and Season 8 Morgan Le Fay. If that's not enough to convince you guys to buy this bundle, I don't know what is. Shop.hi-rezstudios.com to make sure to pick up your bundle before you don't have the opportunity to do so. Great hoodie. If it's anything like the last hoodie that we got in Season 7, you're going to want one because they are some of the most comfortable hoodies out there. And who doesn't want a wall banner with all the pros autographs out there? Shop.hi-rezstudios.com. One more time to pick that one up. It's J-Mac at Aggro here for game number 2. A much better look out of the Tartarus Titans in game number 2. Instead of going nearly blank, they're able to turn this one around and put the Jade Dragons on the back foot.
Yeah, much better for the Tartarus Titans, but it still looked for a little bit like it was going to be the Dragons running away with it. The early game for the Dragons was absolutely phenomenal once again. Sam was playing out of his mind. Fine had an unbelievable game really throughout the entire match. But this back line of Ho Yi AMC just proved to be a little bit too easy to dive, and it really starts with this guy in my mind. Paul, how many times does someone look like they're about to get away, they leap away, and then Paul's right there in order to finish off the kill? He has such natural instincts to be in the right place at the right time, and it just continued to be problematic for the Jade Dragons. And I don't know if they've just got to try and ban this Morgan away from him or what, but I think that's where I'm at now because he has been that good on this pick.
I mean, that little fighter on the Fire Giant, we were watching those two Hunters go back and forth. Well, technically Hurry Wind, I guess, on a Hunter, and then Cyclone. And I'm sitting here right now going, all right, well, Cyclone's probably going to die in this fight. And then Paul just clotheslines Hurry Wind with a stun, and that's all she wrote there. The fight on the left-hand side around the Draugr pit where Final K delays them still looks good here out of the Dragons, but man, this bounce, what a ricochet on an angle the unforeseen out of there. Unfortunately, Layers is the receiving end of that ricochet, and unfortunately, they still end up losing that game here for the Jade Dragons at the end of it. And once again, the Ho Yi, unfortunately, gets another loss in the column there. Tartarus Titans come up big. 7-2-7 for Paul out of the mid lane. Able to find a couple kills on him. And speaking of a couple kills, I kind of did the math over in the green room just to kind of check. And in 2 games, the Jade Dragons got as many kills on the Tartarus Titans as it took the entirety of week 2 of the group stage. So finally, someone's able to get some kills up on these Tartarus Titans. But Aggro, we still got at minimum 2 more games to go here. And it seems that the Tartarus Titans are able to find some way to adapt towards this new meta, even still bringing their old style in.
Yes, but here's where I think the Dragons are ready to bounce back, is that they're in first pick position now. It's their choice. They've chosen to be first pick. And so now I think you're much more free to ban things like the Morrigan, or to make sure that Hurry doesn't get triple banned. And I think that the last game was just the backline for the Titans was much more effective than the backline of the Jade Dragons. Both Hurwind and Panda Cat struggled to put out the same numbers that Cyclone did, who had an insane amount of damage, nearly 30k. And of course Paul on that Morgan, who looked phenomenal. So now I'm excited to see what adjustments the Jade Dragons are going to make. Do they take that Morgan pick away? And do the Titans just decide that we have to leave open something like Yemoja that Mike played very well yesterday?
Well, will be Hell and Yemoja bans right now. Hell and Yemoja previously were banned on the same side by the Titans, but now with that Dragon's first pick, they will take Hell and the Morrigan away. So they are going to remove some of that safety factor from Paul, force him to play something new. The Tartarus Titans aren't going to give up on at least putting some bans towards the way of Hurry Win by getting rid of this Zeus.
But can't ban Zeus, Sol, and Zhonghui and Yemoja. You only get 3 to start the draft, and so you're going to end up leaving 1 of his picks open. Interesting Erlong ban here from the Jade Dragons. This means that Odin could be left open. That's something that's been heavily prioritized, and it will be left open. And Final K has looked so good on this Achilles, man. The only reason the Jade Dragons look like they're going to win that game is because he was hard carrying every fight in that last game. But they take him off of the Achilles in order to give him the Odin, which is fine. You know, even though he's been hot on the Achilles, give him the pick that everyone seems to believe is just outright stronger and let him try and go to work.
It almost kind of feels like a dare here at the Jade Dragons. You know, the Zeus and the Soul get banned away, and then previously it was that Zhonghui kind of thrown into the mix. Now the Jade Dragons grabbing this Odin. Feels like they're just telling the Titans, hey, you might want to probably pick this Zhonghui, otherwise we may just give it back over to Hurry Win, though we did see some aptitude with the Hunter out of the mid lane last time around. But it's going to be Odin first for the Jade Dragons, and then Ganesh and Kamazat. Layers going back onto this assassin here.
I'm just so surprised he goes back to Kama, because how does Kama ever kill Book of the Dead Zhonghui? Like, this has got to be just Zhong here for the Jade Dragons, right? Why would you take Hurry on anything else, or at least some Book of the Dead mage, because it just completely invalidates Kamazat's dive after you get Book of the Dead. So I think the Jade Dragon should be stoked. Lock in Zhong. I think I'd probably go Zhong plus something either for Mike or for Panda. I'd probably go Zhong Hachi with these 2 picks. Just lock in my backline, try and get them more comfortable, give them the option to you know, you take away that Hachimon that Cyclone just looked so good on. You've already banned away Paul's scariest picks in this current meta. I think the Jade Dragons should be just snap locking their backline right now.
They are taking some time to decide maybe what they want to potentially couple with the Zhonghui, if they even want to take the Zhonghui, but with the performance that Hurry Win had on it yesterday, the fact that it's been banned away consistently, would not be surprised if they go there. They are going to go back on the Osiris that got banned away in game number 2 and had 2 strong games on it yesterday in the Jade Dragon set. Wow. They're not even going to go with any of their backline just yet.
Very surprised.
Instead, it's going to be Odin, Osiris, and Geb, all the front line now locked in for the Dragons.
Very surprised. And look, Osiris and Geb are 2 really good picks, but I just think that Hurry has looked so much better on the picks like Zhonghui and Zeus and Sol. Those 3 picks have been far and away his best looking recently. So I think that I would have really tried to lock him in to those selections. Tiamat, I think I'd much rather face Tiamat than Aphrodite right now. I do not think Tiamat leverages the Book of the Dead build particularly well. This is a character that really does want a lot of CDR in the kit, and you just can't get enough with the Book of the Dead build. I guess he could go Sands of Time, Book of Thoth, Breastplate, Book of the Dead, and then you've got enough cooldown, but that does lower your power curve pretty substantially. But Tiamat's kind of a late game god anyways, so maybe I can talk myself into trying that build on her. But overall, I think that Afro scares me a little bit more. But that Odin threat really is what I believe prevented the Titans from locking in Aphrodite.
The first bans that come through is Izanami out of the Jade Dragons. The Titans do manage to ban that Zhonghui away, so they didn't get to do it in the first half. They at least got rid of the Yemoja. They do take it away in the second half of the bans alongside a Hachimon. So we are going to have to see Hurry Win go towards something else in the Mage Tree. Maybe go back towards another Hunter, but Hachimon and Izanami are going to be the 2 Hunters themselves taken out here. Those more towards the duo lane, and then the Nike to couple with there, giving a little bit of respect over towards Benji in that solo lane.
All right, I'm thinking about what gods we could use Book of the Dead on that are open right now, and depending on what we see here from assuming that Benji locks in his selection, that's what I would want to see if I'm Hurry. Charybdis is a little bit scary for the pick that I'm going to suggest, but I think I'd be going Opwash right now. I mean, Ganesh scares you. You know, there's no god that doesn't scare you as Opwash. It's kind of similar to Zeus. He's just worse at putting out the damage. But you've got the protection there from the Odin and from the Geb. I think that's the, you know, you want to play gods that utilize the strongest build in the game right now, which is that book build. I think I'd be locking Opwash here if I'm Heroin.
Man, what a meta we get to talk about where Zeus and Opwash
I know.
are two of the gods that we want to see consistently. This really does feel like we're throwing it back to the Moswall meta a few seasons back here. But with that Charybdis locked in, it will be Opwash on the side of the Jade Dragon. So a little bit of long-range burst damage, a lot of area denial via the way of that Empty the Crypts. And then Heimdall, that got banned in the first phase of Game 1, now gets picked up here in game number 3 for the Jade Dragons.
And I like it. You know, it just brings a little bit of extra CC, brings good safety. This Opwash is going to get dove on repeat, but it shouldn't matter because of the build, so you can really abuse that. I think Opwash is just Zeus, but like way, way, way worse. But it still does the same sort of thing. What are you giving me that look for, J-Mac? He's just worse Zeus. He does big AoE damage.
Well, okay, so worse Zeus is understandable. Yeah. You said way, way, way. So this is way times 3 worse Zeus.
Right.
But you're still putting him up on that same level of pedestal almost.
Yeah, he doesn't deal nearly as much guaranteed damage.
Okay.
He's no, you know, he doesn't bring that longer range damage. All of his damage is closer. It's easier to Aegis. It's harder to get off.
Okay.
He's just worse Zeus.
Well, that's a lot of gods that can't do that compared to Zeus.
Right, but he's also immobile and uses the same build, so he's just worse.
Okay, fair enough. I guess I'll have to give it to you there. One more pick here.
He's also less cool.
I don't know about that.
Oh, no, I'm right.
Hold on. Does Zeus have an ice-based skin, though? I don't think so. Opwash does. Chilling grass. Cooler. That was cooler. Susano, the final pick for the Tartarus Titans here. And to me, that now spells that we've got Camazotz going over towards the solo lane.
Yes, I agree. And Kama solo is something that Benji has played a lot in his career and has looked pretty good on. So it could be solid enough. I'm a little worried about the amount of CC here for the Tartarus Titans, but you know, you just don't need to beads very much on their team. You still have to buy beads because Susano's displacement against Zeus Opwash. I think that Susano's a god that I'm very interested in this meta because unlike Camazotz, I think his dive is good enough. Susano, especially if you can build hi-rez or something like that, actually has enough damage and CC to take you down, unlike a god like Camazotz most of the time. So Susano is something that I'm interested in, but with him being the only real CC that threatens you, I'm a little bit worried about their ability to just use relics on his dive and then survive through Benji's damage, because if Camazotz full assassin isn't enough damage to take down a Book of the Dead mage, then certainly Camazotz solo won't be able to.
I mean, the Camazotz jungle wasn't enough to kill, what was it, a Zeus Book of the Dead build. And now you're going to be taking, what, less power on the Camazotz. You're going to be putting more defense towards it. So potentially a scary game here out of Tartarus Titans. But still trying to make some adjustments into this meta. It seems the Jade Dragons are still trying to run with what the new meta is out here with this Book of the Dead build onto your mage, giving you a lot of that frontline support in this way. If they can't kill the Opwash, the next target I assume has to be this Heimdall then.
And Heimdall's really tough to kill. So that's going to be a problem. And oh yeah, you got a Geb shield, you've got to get through an Odin cage. You know, these are all problems that you're going to have to worry about. But every single character can get through this Odin cage. Ganesh remove obstacles lets you go through player-made walls. Charybdis Whirlpool form lets you go through player-made walls. You can jet stream through that wall. Everyone, and then of course the leaks from Camazotz and Tiamat. So everyone has a way to get out of this Odin cage, but we've seen it proven all year long that that has not been the end of Odin and his effectiveness, that his survivability is his main key these days. It's not the cage, it's how hard he is to kill. And with Final K playing as well as he is right now, I think giving him the ball with a god like Odin makes a lot of sense.
It's going to be a tough game for both of these teams. It's 1-1 in the set in this best of 5. Game number 3 right around the corner.
Now we will figure out who can break this tiebreaker. I've got Mifflin alongside me. I'm Gormizer. And, of course, we are here with Game 3 Titans v. Dragons. And, of course, Doug making sure we get all the best views across the battleground through this set, probably through the day. And I'm going to say this, Mifflin. Very high TTK team on the Dragons. It's going to be very difficult to kill through a lot of those health bars, plus shield, plus Book of the Dead, plus what have you.
Yeah, so Final K's got a built-in shield. Gab can shield whoever he wants. Sanford Soccer is playing a pretty survivable damage mitigation jungler. Panda Cat is the most survivable hunter in the game, and Hurrywin's going to have Book of the Dead because he's playing a mage. Yep, you are right. That is pretty gross on the side of the Jade Dragons. But the Tartarus Titans have got good backline dive, decent survivability in their own right. Cyclone Spin is just about as, if slightly less unkillable than a Heimdall.
True.
Aurora's got good defense shred. Paul's one of the higher DPS gods in the late game as well. Layers can close gap. This should be a highly contentious game. It might be a little bit of a momentum-based game as well. If Sanford Soccer or Layers hit the ground running, they could just carry the rest of their team throughout that mid game. This isn't a match where it's like one team's a little bit weaker in the mid. It's not that bell curve that we saw last time. This is a very standard style of Smite.
You want to talk about maybe some of the worst clearing supports you could have in the duo lane right now. Geb versus Ganesh. That one's going to take a little minute to heat up. Meanwhile, in mid, I think we might face something kind of opposite that. You can see Layers almost and just trying to get aggressive early on. Hurrywin, we said this about Zeus. I think it goes twice as much for Op Wash. For that Book of the Dead, he's still just an Op Wash. He can't get away very easily. But the Osiris as well has been a kind of favorite for just Sam the last couple of days. Everybody else ditched him 3 patches ago, it feels like. But Sam's been looking good on it.
Yeah, and here's the thing about how correlation and causation aren't always the same thing. Sanford Soccer was one of the first players to bring Osiris out into the jungle in Season 8, and then everybody else started playing it, and Sanford Soccer was like, oh, it's not cool anymore. Everybody else is playing with my toy, I don't want it. And now that nobody else is playing it, what's Sanford Soccer doing? He's bringing out the Erlang Shens, he's going to the Osirises, he's finally starting to look towards the Gilgameshes of the world. Sanford Soccer is by and large the most contrarian jungler in the league, but still incredibly talented, incredibly capable of performing on these picks despite having actually less practice on it than just about everybody else. That said, he's got to do something throughout the early game. He's got decent targets. Benji pre-5 could be a pretty easy gank for him. If he's in a close gap on a Paul, with Paul's going to play as far up as he currently is, that's a decent target. Or maybe he just goes for a speed buff invade, trading out his red.
Now this red is going to be nice and aggressive for the Titans. They're going to scoop that up no problem. Layers scoops that one away, maybe knowing at this moment in time that his speed buff is getting taken absolutely away from him. And Osiris might even go for a little bit more. Sam kind of recognizing the map. They've got Layers around the purple buff. And Sam's going to take advantage of that one. Not join the fight, but steal the red buff instead. Good knockups from PBM. Damage seems to be there for PandaCat, but body blocks are there from Aurora. They don't seem to quite have the kill just yet. PandaCat gets him low, but now we've got Paul joining the fray 3 minutes in, and it's a huge fight over the duo lane, and it is going to be Cyclone Spin with your first blood up against PandaCat, but the fight doesn't stop there. Sam finally joins it. Geb Shield keeps him alive and gets him out of there. PBM needs to disengage. Either way, that's a huge swing for the Titans.
Knockup should be coming up shortly for Aurora, but hurry when tossing out the corpses should be enough to stop that engagement in its tracks. So Sanford Soccer rotates through, steals the red buff, steals the speed buff, and buys enough time for the Jade Dragons to take a fight around the purple.
And steal the purple buff. So now they get a little bit more just to sprinkle on top of all of that. Mifflin, I'm going to tell you, with the pace of not just this weekend's games, but like Smite over the last 3 weeks, 3 minutes, 4 people in duo lane was not what I was expecting. Maybe a gank on solo, something that we're used to. What a nuts fight for both of these teams.
It was, and now the Tartarus Titans are not going to take their foot off the gas. The blue buff invade attempt, Benji in first, and I might as well just said a blue buff invade, because unless Final K is jumping over the wall, that one's going down. Sanford Soccer nowhere in range.
Well, they're going to go in and get aggressive. The cage has been dropped, the blink has been used, and Final K gets locked in the cage with them as opposed to the other way around. Sam, just by luck, is going to get out of this one. Has a little bit of mana, but not a whole lot to work with. It's to fall back thanks to PBM. He gets to stay alive, but this is control from the get-go for the Titans.
And the Tartarus Titans, again, not letting off the gas, have grouped up around the red buff. It's both Paul and Aurora, but with Hurrywin, PandaCat, and Mike nearby, that should be enough to dissuade them from going for that fight. Had Layers been able to reset a little bit more quickly, we could have expected yet another engagement to erupt on the Jade Dragon side of the map. But the Tartarus Titans, nursing a small lead in both experience and gold, are going to go ahead and slow down slightly, try and get, or regain rather, control of their own buffs.
They got the 1 kill. Cyclone's been the first blood, and that shared 3 assists, 1 to Roar, 1 to Paul, 1 to Layers. And then Layers gets a kill, gives a Paul over, or gives an assist over to Benji. And it just feels like the entire team all of a sudden gets to jump up. You can see where that gold is manifesting, about 1,000 up, 5 minutes in already for the Titans. Small lead, but still something that is very, very easy to turn into something conquerable. Now Final K is going to try and jump away, knock up from Layers. He's got the damage, but that tower is still formidable this early on.
It is. Layers won't walk in on his own, and Benji was not willing to go forward either. So it is just Final K absorbing a couple of cooldowns. Some significant power spikes have been hit by the Tartarus Titans. Cyclone Spin already has the Crusher finished up, so Panic Cat is not allowed to step up to him. Benji's finished his Blackthorn, whereas Final K is still just sitting on the Shillelagh, so he can't step up either. The Tartarus Titans significantly stronger than their counterparts at this current state of the game. Even in mid, it's Paul going for a much faster build, has the Chronos Pendant already, whereas Hurrywind is going for the new library style of build, meaning that the Tartarus Titans, despite not having a draft that screams early game pressure, they've got it across the board.
I can't tell you how much I missed being able to say library build. Until you brought it up just now, I forgot about it. That is one of my favorite phrases across the history of Smite. Yeah, not stacking that Thoth yet feels painful, I would say, for an op wash this early on. This is actually a good question for you. I mean, Tiamat, you had mentioned we've seen Tiamats do double the damage of anybody else in any given game in the right hands. Paul's hands, I'm going to say, are the right hands. Op wash, I'm going to be completely honest with you, I don't have as much of a lengthy script for as to whether or not he can keep up with that in terms of late game damage, and now we're maybe going to find out how it can fare early on. Paul is getting aggressive around this red buff. PBM has to use the Cataclysm, and there is going to be the Crypts emptied out onto the Titans, but it's not going to be able to find the damage necessary. Just gets them out of there and makes an easier path, potentially, for Hurry to go pick up that red.
Yeah, I think Layers hit a 3-man knock-up there with his ultimate. Had he not done so, Hurrywin would have sunk so much damage into everybody. And to answer your question about Opwash, he chunks. That guy hits really, really hard. He's got great sustain in late-game team fights. He's essentially a self-sustaining healer. He gets all of his mana back when he picks up those corpses as well, so he's essentially allowed to stay in the battleground infinitely as long as he's given a lot of time to do so. So, not only is it all that, but he's also got really good self-heal. It's very, very hard to dive an Opwash unless you're like blinking in on him or you're diving on him with like a leap. Because if you're just walking him down, he's applying a slow.
Yep.
He's applying anti-heal. If you heal yourself, you're getting stunned. His damage output is crazy. He's got great sustain, and with the library build, he's going to have a Nike shield. So, yeah, Hurrywin should be surviving the majority of these fights, and barring all of that, he's got a stone shield coming this way.
You know what? I like what we said at what you just said and what we said at the beginning. It's going to be hard to kill him. I guess it is really the moral of the story. No matter what, he's going to have a lot of uptime to get damage out there, and if he gets it on the right targets, it's going to be a wide amount of burst. Layers was showing face in mid a little bit earlier. Hasn't necessarily sparked up that conversation since then. The Titans had an explosive start. They're still sitting about 2,000 gold up, which 8 minutes in, that's a pretty comfortable lead. This has been way more action, honestly, than it felt like for half a game one, just in 8 minutes.
Yeah, very significant lead for the Tartarus Titans. They've also got a large experience gap as well. Paul up 1 level. Layers has been nursing about a half to 1 level lead the majority of this game. Not able to connect the pool this time, so Sanford Soccer walks out of there. Might have cost him his life had that pool connected with Aurora hovering so closely nearby. And it's Benji who's trying to make full usage of it. Sanford Soccer forced to ult defensively. And by the way, Benji, also part of the lead. 1 level over Final K.
Yeah, he's been very comfortable overall in lane. This is where things get, I want to say maybe awkward, right? You had mentioned it, like Tiamat, not necessarily impossible to kill, but kind of difficult to kill. Susano, pretty good at disengaging and getting himself out of there. Same thing can be said for Charybdis. Same thing can be said for Camazotz. It feels like the only person that maybe is going to be easily locked down on the side of the Titans could be Aurora. And even then, you're locking down Ganesh. Are you really going to be able to burn him through? And if you are you really wanting to commit everything to it? I think this is going to be one of those games where, I mean, that CC chain, your relics, like things like that really do feel important every second of the game.
They do, and especially considering the fact that Aurora has Shell first up overall, so he's going to have a ton more survivability. He's nearly got the Thieves fully stacked. He's almost double the stacks of PBM at this point. The Jade Dragons, I think, are just going to try and slow down the pace of this game and wait for the Tartarus Titans to get proactive on either the Pyromancer or the Gold Fury. The Jade Dragons are not in a position where they can choose the engagement unless they think it's like sneaking away an objective. They might pull Gold Fury first, but it's only if they think the Tartarus Titans are nowhere nearby. Instead, it's more so the Jade Dragons kind of waiting for an opportunity to counterpunch up against the Chaos team. But it is a significant grouping from the Dragons, and the Titans know it. There's an Oracle.
I was going to say you need something like this to go your way through the Dragons. The Titans, it feels like, have just manifested gold in their favor. Sam is incredibly low. Dharmic Pillars are going to get thrown out here. Dragons get the Gold Fury. Mike gets a good Cataclysm, locks up 3 when they're grouped around the Geb. They kill off Pandacat on the retreat. A wild engagement, and the Dragons do, I guess, what they wanted to, which is get themselves ever closer. That 3,000 gold lead back down to 2K.
That was potentially one of the most desperate early game plays I've ever seen. Sanford Soccer in some trouble here. Does get pulled in by Layers, but Layers does not have the mana to finish off what he started. The Jade Dragons take a Gold Fury fight completely in vision of the Tartarus Titans. They're behind, so they know they can't actually peel off and go for the engagement. So the Jade Dragons say, coin toss. We have to. We've already pulled it. If we leave, the Tartarus Titans take it. So we have to stick around. Luckily, the Jade Dragons are able to confirm that objective for themselves, but it was thin margins.
It felt weird. It's the only way I can describe it. Like, there's a lot of fights. I've watched a lot of Smite throughout. Oh my god, this is gonna make me feel real old. Like 8 years now, 9 years. Watched a lot of Smite. That still was difficult to follow and figure out what was going on. Like, neither team seemed too certain of what they were doing, but simultaneously very certain about the engagement. A weird Cataclysm for Mike. Still ends up finding 3. Kind of surprises me. The Titans, again, it feels like they're manifesting gold. I don't see where they're getting half of it, and they're up another 1,000 again.
Yeah, Oracles, Scorpions, mid-camps, everything that is not got a name on it belongs to the Tartarus Titans so far. I think I'm doing some like armchair psychology right now, but I'm pretty sure the Jade Dragons are loudly blaring the fact that, yo, we're behind, we're not comfortable being behind, I don't want to be any further down than we are right now, and that's why they go for the Gold Fury. They're so scared of the idea of the Tartarus Titans taking it that they were willing to just kind of pull some semblance of control in their own side of the court, and it does pan out for them. They've effectively slowed down the game.
I wanted to make some sort of therapy joke, like, hey, how does it make you feel? But ultimately, they're trying to fight right now, and it makes them feel aggression. They're seeing red on the side of the Titans. They're getting damage. Good Dharmic Pillars isolates and encapsulates 2 members of the Dragons. They're looking to burn down Mike, and they're going to do so no problem. The cage was good from Vino-K, but ultimately just leaves them locked in where the Titans want them. That is going to be 1 clean pickup, fall back, grab a Pyromancer.
That Offwash ultimate came out much too late in that team fight. Had Hurrywin dropped it a little bit sooner over the wall, the Tartarus Titans would have either have been forced to disengage or at least get dropped a lot lower to commit themselves to that team fight. Instead, it comes out a little too late. Maybe Hurrywin didn't realize that he had the full range of it, that the cage was lasting as long as it was. And then a great knock-up from Layers despite the cage from Vino-K means that there was no follow-up for it. The Tartarus Titans take the team fight and the neutral objective on the tail end.
Sam tries to take a little bit of a boxing match with Paul. 4 levels down from the mid laner? Yeah, that's not one that he wants to take. 2 levels down in the jungle. A wide experience lead that's starting to encapsulate the Titans in total. 2 levels and what is that, mid as well as jungle, approaching that mark in solo as well, and carry. Nobody's really fallen behind over there, and they've got the kill lead as well. Just feels like everything's coming up the way they want to. And you had said it, pretty much anything that isn't bolted down to the Dragons side of the map, and honestly even some things that are getting taken away by the Titans here. And they're feeling comfortable to do it. 14 minutes in, and it's, still 12 towers standing. Nobody's been able to take those big objectives, but everything in the middle has gone to the Chaos side.
Hey, look, something else in the middle. Going to the Chaos side. Draugr for the Tartarus Titans. The pace of the game right now should slow down. There's actually nothing to fight over for at least a minute until the Gold Fury respawns, and you better believe that earlier when I said the Jade Dragons are looking to slow down the pace of the game, that hasn't changed. They were not successful in doing so, so those gold leads, those experience gaps have only extended in favor of the Tartarus Titans. Another neutral bit of farm goes the way of the Chaos team, and really, Sanford Soccer may have the flank positioning here, but he's level 11. What's he going to do?
Mike, gets a knock-up. Cataclysm just all in on Paul. And Paul's half health, and he just backs off to base. He's not worried about any of the damage that was just thrown his way. Aurora's fine. Layers fine. Charybdis, no trouble whatsoever. Every single member of the Titans just kind of shrugs that off. And that is the amount of lead and gold they have, Mifflin. I mean, they are pushing up to the 5,000 mark. And again, it's just been these small objectives in the middle. Primal Fury, you had highlighted 20 seconds till it comes up. Cyclone Spin's just trying to do whatever he can to take control of this lane. It is wild amounts of what we see. Compared to game one, I mean, this is completely topsy-turvy.
It is. The Tartarus Titans have been in complete control so far and only continue to do so. Greater Scorpion on the Jade Dragon side of the map. Yeah, that belongs to the Tartarus Titans. Red buff invade attempt, potentially, as Layers has spotted it out. Primal Fury, though, the one thing on both of these teams' minds, and the Tartarus Titans there first, they pulled it.
Now, this is a concept, and maybe we'll have to cover it right after this Primal Fury. Halfway now, 1/3, 1/8, and gone. The Titans are going to be able to take that one, no problem, and no face shown by the Dragons. But do the Dragons get better with time? Does this composition, I mean, we talked about how survivable it can be, and it feels like that's still on the horizon. Book of the Dead just now finished for Hurwind. You've still got Geb Shield, despite the fact that he's down a level and a half. Does it get better with time, or do the Titans withstand this aging of Conquest better?
So both teams, I would say, in a dead even state, 60 minutes into this game, probably like a 50-50 on who wins. It comes down to execution on field, and right now, the Titans have it.
Panda Cat can't do anything. Layers is low, but he's not going to fall here. Cyclone Spin got a lot of crits. That early Wind Demon paying dividends.
It really is. Mike rolls in aggressively there, maybe trying to set up for Sanford Soccer, who's got the rotation in. Paul still does not have beads for 40 seconds, so if the Jade Dragons are going to look to fight, now would be the time.
Getting aggressive, knock up onto Sam. Final K comes into the back. Final K's looking stunned, maybe a cage. And ultimately, he's going to be able to find at least one of those. The cage comes down and it locks up Paul. Paul seemingly nonplussed by the damage that is being thrown his way. Instead, the Titans are getting aggressive. The Crypts, Haptide, and Hurwind is going to help his team peel away. But it does cost them a lot to stay alive.
Yeah, the Jade Dragons, man, they are able to finally get the cage on Paul. They burn the Aegis off. CC's good, and it just was not enough damage. We saw Sanford Soccer. He closed gap. He landed some auto attacks. Just doesn't deal a whole lot of damage at this point of the game. Crusher, Stone Cutting Sword, gone for that auto attack style of play, so his abilities have taken a slight hit as opposed to going just straight down the mace tree. And with this kind of deficit, 2 levels down on Layers in the jungle, level 14, so 3 levels down on Paul himself, only 1 level up on the enemy support. I don't think Sanford Soccer is in a position where he can really utilize this auto attack style of build, unless he's hitting like a 5-man tether. Then the damage mitigation feels pretty good, but when you're talking about what if 5-man, that doesn't feel so great.
Fire Giant started up here by the Titans. I was going to mention it. They're about 9,000 gold up at this point. Maybe it's 8,500. And you know what, Mifflin? They got the freest Fire Giant I think we've seen in weeks. No vision, no presence, nothing from the Dragons over here. Not only is it the FG, it's the Pyromancer, and it is control. Right now, the only thing the Dragons are getting in retaliation is potentially this tier 2 on left, but Panda Cat has to get out of there as quickly as possible. It is a full Titans grouping sans Benji on the right-hand side.
Yeah, Benji was forced to rotate over and just make sure that Panda Cat wasn't able to take out that tier 2 tower, and he was not successful. Tartarus Titans, on the other hand, they are. That tier 2 tower's dead. It's gone. Don't even talk about it. It was never there. 5-0 are the Chaos team. Might be a goose egg in reverse this time around. I think the base defense of the Jade Dragons is not awful. They've got good space control. Hurriwind can empty the crypts and essentially deny just the entire area of these tier 2s. I doubt we see anything on this tier 1. I really don't even expect to really see too much on a tier 2 itself, so maybe instead talk about the Phoenix. And then you got Cataclysm as well, Final K space control with the cage. But the one issue has not been space control in these team fights. When the Jade Dragons are starting the fight proactively, they're locking down individual targets. They're finding and whoever they want to. Paul has been gone on successfully multiple times. Those cages have locked him down for the entire duration. It's damage output that the Jade Dragons are struggling with. And that's not going to change for a little while because Hurriwind went Breastplate of Valor for survivability, so his damage takes a pretty significant hit. We've seen survivability picked up for Sanford Soccer. Winged Blade is the selection, so he's not really dealing the most damage as of right now. Panda Cat, being an ADC, isn't really in a position where he can fight the priority targets like Paul, like Cyclone Spin. He's kind of just dealing with the dive of Benji, Layers, and Aurora. Dragons, I think it's going to demand perfection from them to find these defenses. The Tartarus Titans, on the other hand, have established such a lead that they can kind of play a little sloppy if they want.
Yeah, they're relaxing. Look, that's 12,000 gold that's in their favor. And when you're 20 minutes into the game, it feels great, especially when you get kills like that. You had mentioned the damage charts. It was Fine OK at the top, and then 4 members of the Titans above everybody else on the Dragons. I think it was a 2K separation in mid. A lot of damage that's favoring them. And now they're starting to get aggressive. They've knocked down all the towers. They are going to go instead for the Phoenix and see what they can get here. And it's just forcing the Dragons to fall back. They open the door to the Titan room. They're going to continue getting aggressive and doing exactly what they need. Hurrywind goes down. So does Panda Cat. Mike is next on the chopping block, and the Titans just controlled this from minute 1. 9-0, maybe making it 10 depending on Fine OK here. The Titans going to go down, and the Titans take the lead.
That was as simple as it gets. I mean,
yeah.
What happened?
They just played the game at the Dragons.
The Tartarus Titans were simply better? Question mark? At least in that match, the draft didn't work out for the Jade Dragons. The survivability never really reared its head. It was an early lead for the Tartarus Titans that nets them every neutral objective, every bit of neutral farm, the majority of the Jade Dragons jungle, massive golden experience leads throughout the early. Fire Giant, like 17.5 minutes into the game.
Quick at that, too.
Yeah, that Fire Giant, we didn't have time to talk about it. I didn't even realize it was pulled yet, man. The Tartarus Titans, that was clean.
Yeah, if you ever wonder, like, if we use the term control, that is the definition of control. Pretty much nothing going wrong for the Titans there. We'll see if the Dragons can bounce back in Game 4, if the Titans will close this one out right after this.
Peace through tyranny. Pathetic fools! There's no escape! Transformers! Let's roll out.
Welcome back, Smite fans. Game number 3 is all wrapped up. The Tartarus Titans blank the Jade Dragons in game number 3 and decimate the composition. Before we jump into game number 3, as we get closer and closer to the time, I want to remind you guys that we are holding a charity event come December 11th. Our Finchmas charity event will be taking place. Make sure that you tune in here on our Twitch channel as we stream now. We've got some cool people coming by. We got a lot of cool things planned out there, so make sure you come out and celebrate our time, and make sure that you come here for the memorial of our good friend John Finch, and also donate to a good cause here in our charity event. So be tuning in December 11th then for all that. We'll have more details to come in the upcoming days and weeks, so make sure you're paying attention towards that. But game number 3 was a rough game for the Jade Dragons. Pretty much a complete flip of what we saw in game number 1, where the Dragons handled the Titans. Complete opposite look here, and well, maybe you were right, Aggro. Maybe Outwash just is a way, way worse Zeus.
I mean, look, the proof is in the pudding now, J-Mac, because the early pressure that Outwash brings just does not match that of Zeus at all. Yes, they use the same build. Yes, they're both AoE-centric mages. But one of the things that makes Zeus so good right now is his early pressure. Outwash just does not have that. And they tried to make up for it with this Osiris pick, but Sam fell behind early. This play changed the game, because this should have been a massive win for the Jade Dragons, but Panicat does not place his portals well at all, sets himself up to be first-blooded, and then it just becomes, instead of Sam getting really far ahead, because he was coming from the right-hand side, he could have gotten blue, speed, went behind the tier 1 tower, red, purple. He could have gotten all 4 buffs. Instead, he comes to a losing fight and loses out on all that farm, and that momentum carried for the Tartarus Titans. This Geb pick was low pressure. That did not work for the Jade Dragons. You know, you think to how they want to be playing these skirmishes, you know, it's higher pressure situations. That just was not working for them in this game, because they didn't have that side lane pressure. The Odin didn't look nearly as scary for Final K as the Achilles or the Mulan have. I think it's I really feel like this game looks so much different if instead of locking in Osiris Geb, they go Osiris Zhong. In that spot. I think that this game turns out much, much better for them.
And just a lot of what we've been seeing pretty much all season long, where Paul gets to sit back and precast and deal as much damage. Layers gets to jump into the middle of everybody. Same here with Benji at the end of the game. He goes 104, 405 for Layers. Everybody undying here on the Titans in this game. Pretty much even damage across the board on those top 3, though. Cyclone and Aurora kind of just getting to coast by. We had a lot of early skirmish there towards that dual lane. When it came down to those later skirmishes, man, that 3 strong on that right side of the map of the Titans just felt like they were, well, they actually were unkillable, but it felt like they were almost a mountain to try and get past.
Yeah, pretty much impossible. So now what do you do if you're the Jade Dragons? I mean, is it as simple as running it back and then just taking the Zhong Kui top 3? You know, now I think that you start to question the Odin pick and its viability in comparison to how the Achilles looks or the Mulan looks, you know, those hard carry style solo laners there for Final K. Are those better for him than the Odin? But do we want to let Benji play Odin? Probably not. So now that changes our bans. You know, there's a whole lot of problems now for the Jade Dragons because that game goes so poorly. They've got to... The Tartarus Titans have no adjustments to make after that game. They can just coast and see what the Jade Dragons do.
And that's kind of the dynamic here in these best-of-5 sets. You know, normally in a best-of-3, this one's all said and done with here, but now the Jade Dragons may have to change things up towards Game 4, potentially Game 5 if they can get a win here up over the Tartarus Titans. We're going to see a lot of similarities in the bans from Game number 3. Pretty much direct same across the board. Hell, the Morgan, Zeus, and Umoja. Titans, they banned the Soul here last time around. Jade Dragons have quite a few options.
And it was Erlong in that spot. I was going to say they should ban Odin here instead, because I don't think that you want to play that Odin, but you don't want Benji to play it either. If Layers gets Erlong Shen, so be it. You know, that's a matchup that we don't love. Interesting. So the Titans ban Erlong Shen, knowing that the Dragons may have first picked it. And I think this is really good for the Jade Dragons, because now you can just go Achilles. That's been the pick they've been top picking overall. I think you can go Achilles, and either way, you'll have the option of Soul or Zhong Kui on the back end. First pick Ganesh is a wild world to live in, but he's got a 100% win rate, and the Titans have top 2'd it the last few games. So I think it does make sense. This still lets you pick either Soul or Zhong on the back end. I was going to say the Titans should take Achilles away 100%. but we know that so this now becomes very simple in my mind, J-Mac. It should just be, no, if the Titans pick Soul here, which they could, they've shown the ability to put Paul on Soul in the past. Okay, great. Now you just get either Mulan Zhonghui or Mulan Soul. And any combination besides those two is criminal here for the Jade Dragons.
Well, they've at least fit one of those puzzle pieces in. Mulan and Ganesh are the first two for the Jade Dragons, Achilles, Camazotz, and there is the Soul, so you complete your trifecta on the Jade Dragons. Now the option goes back over towards the Tartarus Titans. Paul could pick the Zhonghui. I believe he's done it a couple of times in the past, or he could just go back to this Tiamat that worked so well for him in game number 3, and he will do just that. Now with the bans coming back through, maybe see a couple solo lane bans, maybe see some hunter bans here. It will be the Hachiman at least for the first one of the Titans.
Yeah, I like the Hachi ban. I think if I'm the Titans, I probably ban AMC next. But with the dive of a Camazotz, Achilles, and a Tiamat, maybe you don't need to worry about that quite as much. But I think that's the pick that Panda Cat has looked strong on in the past. They banned Susanoo away, which is interesting because I don't think that's, again, the direction the Jade Dragons are likely to go. But it still fits in Sam's, typical God pool. So they take away a pick that he's been comfortable on. And now they're, this Camazotz doesn't have that flex potential that we saw from it last time around. I don't think there's a world where we see Aurora take this Achilles into support. So this is Camazotz jungle pretty much locked in my mind.
I was thinking, we saw Mike take the Achilles support one time, but probably not the same thing here for the Tartarus Titans. It is Hachiman, Susanoo, and then Xing Chen banned by the Jade Dragons. He's become a very popular support as of this playoff, specifically with the buffs to him in this patch and the performance that he's put out. I think undefeated so far in the games that he has made it through. Same here with the Ganesh. So it seems that we found two supports at the very least who've been able to find tremendous success during this playoffs, having one picked and one banned away. Jade Dragons poised for a potential good game here in Game 4, but they still have one more ban, and they're spending a lot of time trying to decide what they want to go with here. You think maybe they just throw another support ban here? Well, I'll hold my tongue immediately, as it is Kabrakan banned away.
Yeah, I was thinking Kabrakan, but it's not as scary for Soul and Ganesh, but I think it makes sense. I was going to say either Khepri or Geb are the picks that scare me the most from this position. So, this is, remember, the pick that Aurora looked absolutely dominant on at Phase 2 playoffs. I love him going back to it in a clincher to try and send them to the semifinals at Worlds. I think that's a very smart pick for them. The Dragons do need their jungler, and Sam has played Thanatos, and it is pressure, which has kind of been the name of the game for the Jade Dragons. So I think I'm either going Thanatos here if I'm Sam, or maybe a Willix, because you've got good knockups on your side between Ganesh, Mulan, and Soul. They all have knockups that can set you up, Soul being the hardest to execute on, of course. But you've got the Camazotz and the Tiamat on the other side. Pulling people away from the Khepri can sometimes be good. It's easy to knock up Khepri because his hitbox is so big, and you can, it's the way that it works for the Moonlight Charge. If you can just get it on their side, it'll knock them up, and because Khepri's so big, it takes longer for his model to turn all the way. So I feel like that's an easier hitbox to land on. Those are the two junglers that I think that I'd be the most interested in.
Well, right now the Jade Dragons are looking at Pele as a potential, and they will lock this god in. So now we don't have to worry about what the jungle is going to be concerned with. It will be the Pele versus Camazotz matchup, and then the Amuzin Cobb you were alluding to earlier as a potential ban is going to be the final pick for the Jade Dragons. I mean, what a world we're living in right now where Ganesh is a top pick, AMC is a very relevant, very potent hunter, Zeus on the opposite side being a ban. We saw Opwash later, and we're looking at Set, but it won't be Set. Instead, it'll be a flip back over to the Charybdis for Cyclone.
Little surprise, but that Set AMC matchup is so volatile. Like, if you fall behind at all as Set, your game is over in that lane because AMC just pressures you out so easily. So the Charybdis makes some sense. I'm a little surprised to see Sam go Pele. I actually think Pele is really good right now and provides a lot. It's one of those junglers that can actually kill Book of the Dead mages because she overkills you by so much in the mid to late game. But the thing about Pele is that in the late game, her game becomes very simplified. Is who do I want to 1-for-1 for? Because I'm dying no matter what. If I'm in, I'm dead. But it's about getting the pressure and making sure that I'm trading for a more valuable member. And 1-for-1ing up against Khepri never works because it's going to be a 1-for-0. You're dying for Khepri, and that's really it. So I really am not in love with this Pele pick unless Sam can be incredibly, incredibly potent at picking his spots very intelligently, not going in too early. But someone else is going to have to be forcing Khepri ults, and I just don't see it here for the Jade Dragons. I think their comp is much better. I think that they're in a good position to win this game based on their composition. But if they get to these late games that Game 2 got to, I just think that the Titans, this Khepri pick, is so scary for Sam. I think it's going to completely neutralize him.
I mean, not just the Pele into the Khepri here. Now you're also looking at who can the Pele officially kill out here. Charybdis has been known to be one of the safer hunters because of all of the time that she spent. I mean, how in the world is Sam going to be able to even break through just that god alone? Then you have Tiamat and Achilles on the tail end there to try and deal with. I mean, where does Sam even try and put his pressure up against these Titans?
I mean, if he can find a flank and isolate 1v1 any of these characters, Pele, I think Pele still kills Charybdis. I think Pele still kills Tiamat. Still, doesn't die to Camazotz and can kill him potentially. Pele's 1v1 is like unmatched. This god is nearly impossible to 1v1 because of her mobility and her damage and how she can spread out her damage really effectively to play around relics. I'm a big Pele fan. I just think that this Khepri pick is the problem. So if he can find isolated 1v1s up against Cyclone, it's kind of a pipe dream to go 1v1 up against the Hunter, but I think he can do it on this type of pick. Just a matter of doing it without Aurora around.
And you've got Achilles, Camazotz to try and deal with some of the backline here up against the dive on Soul AMC. How you kind of liking that matchup for the Camazotz against that? Well, hold that. I won't even have you discuss that. Maybe that's something that Mifflin and Goremizer can do as we hop right into game number 4.
Game 4, Dragons need to win this one, or they get sent packing. The Titans guarantee themselves a trip straight to the semifinals of Worlds, man. That's a pretty good prize, let alone the fact that I'm pretty sure the prize pool difference between first at this event and second is like $30,000 or something like that. It is a nice chunk of change that you get making it all the way to the finals. But more importantly is that Worlds trip. So the Dragons need to do a lot. Is this the draft that can do it?
Oh, man. The Jade Dragons have a draft that is, I like the word that Agro used, volatile. He was talking about the set versus AMC matchup, but I think this is a draft for the Jade Dragons that is either going to super dominate, and I'm talking like real fast. Final K can body a lane on a god like Mulan. It's probably the most consistent, strongest early game lane bully in the Soul lane. Sam for Soccer playing a god that, if you are able to establish a lead, just gets to fights before everybody else. And then if you're ahead, you're going to end fights before everybody else as well. And then you've got decent late game scaling that the Jade Dragon's going to fall back on. Soul and AMC going to be very strong as the game goes on. But the Tartarus Titans have drafted some picks that I think are going to make it very hard for both Hurrywind and Pandacat to survive these late game team fights. Layers' dive, Benji's dive, very consistent against picks like AMC, who's largely immobile, or like Hurrywind, who's really only got the one escape.
And this is actually a big deal, might be an even bigger deal. Final K gets low. Benji not able to seal off that kill. Cyclone Spain now is on the other side of the map in a little bit of trouble as well. But this Soul pickup, banned away from Hurry in a lot of games, one of the most played gods that Hurry has had this year. Very successful for the Dragons when he's on it as well. But it still doesn't quite line up with the other gods we've seen him find success on this weekend.
Well, when he played Soul, it looked pretty good, right? Yeah. Like, he went for that Bancroft's talent immediately into Typhon's Fang style build. He was leveraging it in the early game. It was a lot of objective-focused play from the Jade Dragons around that pick as Sam goes for a crazy gank attempt, blinks it on tower line, and body blocks Paul pretty well, but Soul at level 3 just simply doesn't have the damage output to force out too much there. They at least are able to take the Aegis off of Paul, so next rotation, next gank attempt from Sanford Soccer, going to be a lot easier to execute on.
This is where aggression tends to come out for the Dragons, not only that gank attempt. I want to put that in quotes when we say it, that gank attempt from Sam, like you said, at the tower line, but also over in the duo lane, a lot of control. Kind of surprising, again, with the way Ganesh's clear usually is, but I guess that's countered by the Khepri Charybdis clear that is on the other side. And it's been this duo lane, or sorry, this solo lane, where ultimately Benji's been able to get a little bit of a leg up. No first blood just yet, but bullying at least on the Final K. This Mulan was huge yesterday in a lot of these turnaround fights. And I feel like that's really what I'm looking at. You know, Heroine's a pillar in mid. You know that AMC is good for Pandacat. And you know Mulan is good for Final K. And it feels like that's kind of holding up all of the Dragons' hopes.
Yeah, and wait till Final K gets like Blackthorn Hammer. That lane's going to turn around completely. It's around level 7 to 9 where Mulan starts to hit those training exercise evolutions. And then the second you get to that, the lane's going to change. Achilles might have a little bit more relative value in the late game. Execute, very versatile. That stun, very good. But Mulan in the early, pretty nice.
There's going to be a nice tornado chasing down in mid. Nothing coming out of it. This is, again, last game, at this minute mark, we had 4 people in the duo lane from each team fighting and clashing. So it's taken a little bit of a pause from that one, which admittedly I think is better for everybody. A nice breath to start this out. But it feels like, especially as Aggro had said, and you've kind of highlighted, the Dragons don't really want to bank on this going into these late game skirmishes when you have Tiamat, Khepri, Camazotz on your side.
No, they don't, which is why we've seen these pretty proactive plays throughout the early game. Sam for Soccer, not the type of dude who wants to be in your tier 1 tower at level 3, but he's already tried that. PBM has been dashing in aggressively every single time, trying to set up some sort of kill for PandaCat. Has not hit pay dirt there either just yet. But it's a lot of defensive relic selections as well from both of these teams. Hurrywin goes towards Aegis in the first slot, as does Paul. You've got a Shell pickup for Aurora, and all of these things are kind of adding up to a slower paced game. And a slower paced game is something that you would likely expect to see in a best of 5 series in Smite on set point. Every one of these teams are always going to play a little bit more cautiously when your tournament life is on the line, and I don't think the Jade Dragons are going to like play opposite of that. They're not against the grain in that way. I think it's probably weighing on them slightly. The last couple of games have not gone how they would have liked, and now their tournament life's on the line.
You know what? I have to correct myself. That's $24,000 to separate first and second.
Where did you?
That's
were
on our
staring.
blog post.
But you didn't read the blog post.
No,
you were
I
looking at the game.
I remembered.
Okay.
And that's what I was thinking of. You had mentioned, I mean, not just set life, but your tournament life right here. And the first thing I thought of was, yeah, it would suck if you lose here. You just have to, you have an intrinsically harder path to get to Worlds from that moment forward.
Less money.
If you're the Dragons. And like you said, less money overall that you're going to be making in the process. So I think a lot of these players having that way on their heads. The trip to Worlds is probably the first thing. A nice guaranteed semifinal for you. It's maybe something that you want a little bit more when you're looking at what you could grab at the other end. If you're someone like the Dragons who have been to the finals more times than most people can count, and unfortunately have not got that championship just yet, we'll figure out if this will be their year or not. This game has to go right for them before any of that can kick off, though. And the Titans are still kind of controlling it. Granted, it's 300 gold that separate these teams in favor of the Dragons, and they're going to expand that ever so slightly if they can get this greater Scorpion. But no big first blood just yet, no huge skirmishes that have broken out. The Titans are willing to take this pace and match it.
The difference between Sam for Soccer and Layers' build, Sam for Soccer going towards Crusher early on, and Layers going for the Jotuns. Sam is much stronger than Camazotz right now. As far as damage output is concerned, the fights aren't going to go long enough for the additional CDR that Layers has to really come into play.
Yeah.
It's more so that CDR is going to help you out between engagements, make sure your ultimate's off cooldown a little bit more quickly. Whereas Sam is, I'm going to get in, I'm going to get my kill, and somebody's going to get ahead. That's the entire strategy from this Pele build as of now. He also leverages the attack speed a little bit better as PandaCat forced to use the beads. He took a lot of damage from Cycle and Spin on his own, but Aurora showing up just kind of tips it over in favor of the Tartarus Titans.
This is just good play from the Titans as all around, you had mentioned. Not necessarily looking for too much. Sam has that blink available now, was used earlier. As we've highlighted a few times, got to the tier 1 line of the Titans mid lane. And unfortunately, since then, we haven't seen too much out of him. He's peeked his head in these lanes, and much like we're seeing right now, he's showing face over around the solo side of the map. We haven't really seen him get aggressive as of yet. Layers, on the other hand, is currently getting aggressive onto the purple buff over here. PandaCat rooted, no beads this time. Body blocks are good, bad out of hell. It's not going to be used aggressively here. PandaCat between the tier 1 and tier 2 at half health. He's going to be able to stay alive. Layers disengages. That purple buff is sitting on the ground waiting for Panda to come pick it up.
Meditation goes crazy, man. That relic is just so good. If Mike has literally anything else, PandaCat's TKO'd. He has to go back to base. Even if it's a shell there, the damage output would have been enough to send PandaCat back to base, but instead he got meditation. So Panda gets mana sustain, HP back, full HP in the lane thanks to the sustain from Death's Toll as well. And PBM just gets to walk merrily away, whereas Aurora trades out his shell as well. So you're not even feeling so bad about the Jade Dragons kind of being on the back foot in that engagement. Oracles both go the way of the Tartarus Titans, as you can see reflected on the map. They've got vision on the Gold Fury going forward. as of now, I think the Jade Dragons really do want to start leveraging this composition very soon. Keep your eyes on Sam for Soccer. He should be the originator, the majority of the aggression.
Yeah, the other one might just be fine. Okay, that engage that we just saw now, the grapple hook pull onto pretty much anybody in the late game was what was helping them win a lot of games yesterday. He's starting that up now. Benji's half health. Sam's in the neighborhood, but that tier 1 tower is threatening. Layers, Aurora following behind Sam. And there's going to be the root. That's going to be the engage. Aurora potentially waiting to figure out who he wants to pluck, who the goal is going to be, but it's going to be the grappling hook. And now PBM has joined the 3v3 fray that is the solo lane. And neither team seems to want to commit to this fight too heavily. So it's going to be the blue buff picked up for Titans. PBM and Sam are just hanging out in the jungle.
Did you see what Final K did in that team fight, by the way? It was whatever Final K wanted to do in that team fight. He just goes in.
Now Paul, oh wow, great Dharmic Pillar's actually in danger this time around. Walks through, procs him, there's going to be the Capriel. In fact, he's going to go ahead and proc that one, go right to Aurora, and re-engage on this one. Layers gets the first blood, and PBM is getting chased down. Good root from Aurora, and that locks him up. The jungler gets a double kill here. Layers finds 2 and gets a good lead.
That was exactly what aggro was concerned about for this Pele. You all in engage when you decide to use the ultimate on that god, and against just about any other composition that doesn't have Kepri on it, it's a 1-for-1 trade. Paul would have just died. Instead, it's a 1-for-ultimate trade, and PBM's out of position trying to help you out, so he dies as well. 2-for-0, favoring the Tartarus Titans, and potentially a Gold Fury as well.
Gold Fury started up. Panda Cat sees it. Heroin sees it. Heroin does not have his ult, so no cheeky steals through that. Cyclone spins in their ult. Try and throw that out there, and it's going to be able to find the stun great onto Panda Cat. Mana low for Hurry, but they're walking forward. The Dragons try to steal that way, but the Titans still manage to secure it. Aurora has virtually no health, absolutely no mana, but they still walk out alive, and that is a huge swing in just a minute for the Titans.
Not often you see Capri passive save somebody's life, but I gotta think that's exactly what happens there with Aurora living with sub 50 HP on the tail end of that engagement, and it rains, it pours. The Tartarus Titans now find first one, a secondary kill, and the neutral objective on the tail end. But the Jade Dragons have been doing a good job of mitigating that bleeding, of trying to find farm elsewhere on the map. Although the gold isn't looking so good for them, the experience is like 20 separating these two teams. The Jade Dragons are still 100% in this.
Still in a good position. Pyromancer's going their way as well. So even that small little bit of gold that was going towards the Titans now gets chunked down just under the 1,000 mark, favoring the Titans here. With only 2 kills on the board as well, Mifflin, I mean, you really get to see the impact of what these team fights could look like. You had mentioned it. When Aurora has his ult, all of a sudden Pele's not feeling so good. The Bat Out of Hell is still fantastic in the right circumstances. And what we were, and the desk specifically, were raging about, a lot of the time, or raving about is maybe the better phrase for it, was Camazot's into Book of the Dead Mage. Soul, no Book of the Dead, and probably won't be picking it up anytime soon. So it feels like this is a good and great opportunity for Layers to show off why this has been like a signature pick for him.
Yeah, but Soul's also just like kind of okay.
Yeah,
the
she did
yeah, straight up disapparate, plus self-sustain, plus double lifesteal. It means that even if you are in a 1v1 up against Layers, you might just be able to win out on that fight. But this isn't a 1v1. It's a 3 versus 4, with the Jade Dragons being the 4 on their red buff.
The Titans, admittedly, when you have Capriel, kind of feels like you always have to add a number. They do steal away that red buff, and they're going to be able to walk away happy with that pickup. I also believe that purple buff might have been dropped just now by Cyclone Spin. So even more experience going in their favor. Granted, you see a level lead right now for Panda Cat. Actually just ticked over to 12 for Cyclone Spin, so a pretty good lead for the carry over there. Same thing can be said in the solo lane. But it's everywhere else that feels like it's suffering just slightly.
Yeah, Aurora spent a lot more time in the duo lane than PBM has, so Panda Cat naturally going to pull ahead slightly just by not splitting up his farm, reflected right now on the map. Who is PBM splitting with? It's Hurrywind, and Hurrywind's a level down, go figure. So, it seems like the Tartarus Titans are just kind of trying to facilitate Paul a little bit more so, whereas the Jade Dragons are trying to play around Panda Cat a little bit more so. And finding farm on AMC feels pretty good. It makes sense to me that you can kind of trust Hurrywind to fall slightly behind because he's much more survivable on this soul pick than AMC is out of the duo lane. That said, with Aurora playing in the duo lane more often just to allow Paul to free farm, that means that Aurora is further away from the action, further away from where Sam for Soccer is playing. And if that's the case, could be an opportunity for Sam for Soccer to get involved in these team fights. Again, it's a 1-for-1 trade when Pele goes in, unless Aurora's there. Then it's a 1 for Scare's Blessing trade.
Not as worthwhile for him. Blink's available, though, here for Sam. It's just where and who you can get aggressive on. Aurora is in the right area. Hurrywind might not be. Disapparate, hey, it still exists, still good. And gets him out for now. A little bit of damage after the fact. He's going to stay alive, and he's going to be able to self-sustain no problem. PBM joins the fray alongside Sam, so it's a full 3v3 in mid. They're hanging out in the tier 2. They know better than to try and re-engage on this Titan squad.
Hurrywind does lose out on his Aegis, though. Disapparate, very nice for damage immunity, but you got to fully channel it before you get that portion of the ability, and Paul's damage output was enough to scare that relic out of the mid lane of the Jade Dragon. So next time around, the Tartarus Titans might be able to have a little bit more success in that engagement. As of now, neither team has much places to go, except towards FineOK.
Yeah, chugging along, FineOK does use the ult to disengage layers, looks for the chase down. Benji is going to dive under the tier 2 tower. Execute range has been met, but it's going to be body blocked. No, Benji has to use it to disengage. That tower did too much damage to him, and now Sam re-engages on this one, but much like we saw earlier, there's the Scarab's Blessing. Benji is alive for now and well off into the jungle. He's going to be able to run away with the rest of his team. That's going to be no kills picked up, just shy of getting a good grapple from FineOK. The Dragons have to call it quits.
That is so tough, man. Both times Sam for Soccer uses the volcanic eruption, it just gets Scare's Blessing.
Yeah, Roy just says, okay.
Yeah, okay. All right. You seems you've hit the go button. I'm going to hit the stop button. Red light, green light. Tartarus Titans have control of the switch here. Aurora has to have his ultimate forced out before Sam for Soccer utilizes his ultimate. That's the only way I can see this Pele getting value in these team fights. So who's it going to be? Is it FineOK on his own? Maybe. This Mulan has been getting the better end of the majority of the 1v1s post level 5. But does he have enough damage to put enough threat that Aurora is forced to use that ultimate? I'm not sure. You need to get a Hurrywind involved in these team fights, but for the most part, he's being chased out by both Layers and Paul in these engagements. The Jade Dragons haven't had an opportunity to really group up and take a 3-on-3 or a 4-on-4 engagement. Once PBM gets involved, separate the team fight with the Dharmic Pillars, that could create some opportunities for Sam for Soccer to start diving into the back line. But as of now, this Pele, it hasn't been working.
Still just shy of, well, more like 1,500 gold between these two teams. Approaching 2,000 if the Titans continue on this onslaught, and you can see the trend in the graph going their way. 2,200 experience as well. It's going to bounce back and forth. Primal Fury, no, sorry, Oni Fury and Pyromancer are available. It seems like the Pyromancer is going to be the option immediately for the Titans. And no contest again. It's been kind of quiet from the Dragons on these fronts. Very similar to last game. The Titans are just kind of getting the objectives they want.
Jade Dragons had a ward on it. They knew it was happening, so what do they do with that space? They go to the Oni Fury. Fortunately for the Tartarus Titans, they were privy to it. Just a Roar and Cyclone Spin peeking around the corners enough to dissuade both members of the Jade Dragons from holding on to that objective. If your eyes on Sam for Soccer, it seemed as if he was going to attempt a gank on Charybdis, but instead rotates away. He spotted out Aurora and said, well, I've played this game before. I know what happens when I try and fight and Aurora's around. Can't do it. So he just immediately has to walk away.
Now that Oni Fury started up by the Titans, they're burning it pretty quickly. That Wind Demon pickup for Cyclone Spin has opted and enabled a lot more damage than I think they wanted. They leashed that one. Sam for Soccer is going to get caught out, but it's going to be, once again, an engage from Layers that opens up the door. Hurrywind, half health already. Dharmic Pillars thrown down, and that's going to separate the teams, but it's not going to be enough to save the mid laner. Benji, credit for that kill, and now chasing down even more. Tries for a huge stun, huge ult from Cyclone Spin, but just shy of hitting the 4 members of the Dragon standing. They fall back under the tier 2 in left, and the Oni Fury started up again by the Titans.
FineOK and Baze. Panda Cat has ultimate, but that's pretty easy to block out. Might just lose out on a little bit more than his ultimate. Could potentially lose the life as well. Panda Cat in significant trouble.
Yeah, chasing him down. Aegis going to be used. Knock up. The beads are great, but it's not enough to save your life. PBM comes in for the save. Sam is here, but there's not much they can do.
Yikes.
The Titans are just running it down the left lane. They're still a tier 1 up, but it doesn't matter. They get the Fury. They get 3 kills in that fight, and they're happy with it.
Fury, tier 1, 3 kills. Tier 2 probably as well. Paul brought his own minions. Doesn't have to wait for the wave. The Tartarus Titans have blown open this game. Gold, experience, all in their favor. And what did the Jade Dragons get? Maybe a tier 1 in the Soul Lane. That's a big ask for Fine OK.
That's a heavy maybe.
Yeah, that's a heavy maybe because the Tartarus Titans, 18 minutes in, could just group up as 5, walk over to the Fire Giant. If Fine OK is still there, take his life, have an easier time looking towards the neutral objective. This is tough stuff, man. The Jade Dragons, they've got a draft that looks better than what we saw in the last game, but has not been given the space to breathe.
Haven't had many golden opportunities to do much. The few kickoff starts, openings, whatever you want to call them that we've seen for the Dragons have ultimately been met with a roar saying, yeah, but no. And that's where the conversation stops. There hasn't been much after that. And unfortunately, that is all around Sam. 30 seconds left on that blink, so maybe 30 seconds before we get to see him do too much. You had mentioned the Fire Giant. We're 19 minutes in with the lead they have now approaching 6,000 gold if they can continue at this pace. The Titans are going to be more than happy to do exactly what they did in Game 3.
Gore, I'm racking my brain right now trying to figure out if there's a more miserable matchup than Pele into a Khepri composition. And I am struggling to come up with one, and I'm sure Stanford Soccer would be struggling to come up with one as well. He does have Erendite now. Brawler Beat Stick picked up, so his burst has gotten a significant boon. Next item should really push him over the edge, but next item might be a long ways off if the Titans pick up the fire.
Now that's the wild thing. They picked this Pele into that. So far, we haven't seen too much. The Khepri was there. It's half health on the Fire Giant. Cyclone Spin, chunking it down. Layers caught out, but not worried whatsoever. In fact, Layers getting aggressive onto Hurry. Disapparate should be able to get him out of there. No, the Execute is going to be clean. They drop the fire, but they get 2 kills in the process. The Titans are going to go ahead and pull back and pick up the objective one more time.
Stanford Soccer pushes out the mid wave and now has the wraparound. I think he has to go for the hero play.
Oh, and he's going to jump in. The Fire Giant's low. Titans secure that one. Sam not able to get anything done. Layers, no mana to work with. Aurora, hardly any health to work with. But the Titans still have 5 strong, and they're leading 7 kills to 0 over the Dragons.
No shot the Tartarus Titans blank the Dragons 2 times in a row, right? Like, that simply won't happen. They're now starting to push their way in towards the Tier 2 tower on the right-hand side of the map. Stanford Soccer trying to match pressure elsewhere. Is going to have to line up against Layers, and I don't know, maybe that's a 1v1 he wins. He's got a level lead. He's got a build advantage. Could be potential to fight with Aurora no longer there. Take Fire Giant off at least one member, but Sam not interested in taking that fight. And the Tartarus Titans will strip away the Tier 2 tower for free. Fire Giant on 5 members as well. This is tough, man. The Jade Dragons might have to look for another Hail Mary style of play where they group up in the jungle and just try to catch the Tartarus Titans with their pants down, but I don't see that happening. Not 21 minutes into the game. The Titans have been playing grouped up clinically. The team fight has been clean. The engage has been very good from them as well. Benji starting off a majority of these fights with a blink forward into a stun. Aurora always there for the follow-up CC. He's been kind of playing in the back line for the most part for either follow-up CC or just the ability to use Scarab's Blessing for peel. This is an opportunity though. Benji alone for just a moment.
Caught out. Well, what you would think is caught out. I saw 3 people, 4 people from the Dragons surrounding Benji, and Benji just stays there and is fine. Didn't take any damage in the process either. Is going to be able to walk away no problem. Fire Giant still strong for another 2.5 minutes on this power play. Pyromancer taken down by the Titans. They're going to spend some of that gold. They take down one more tower. Leaves just the Tier 2 and mid standing for the Dragons. But they're kind of slow-rolling this Fire Giant, if I'm being honest with you. I mean, there's not much they can do. It's get aggressive into a Phoenix or play it slow pace like this. And it feels like they're making the safer option their favor. Tier 2 and mid, probably next on the chopping block, but the Titans just have an iron grip on the game. The Dragons have to wait for the game to come to them.
They do. Luckily for the Jade Dragons, the majority of the Titans have hit their experience lead cap, fall level 20, so 3 levels is the most that Jade Dragons or Hurrywin specifically are going to have to deal with. Gold, though, very significant at this point, as is positioning. Stanford Soccer may have been too far up.
Blink good from Layers. Oh my god, where does that damage come from? Paul
GG?
just deletes Sam like it's nothing. 8 kills to 0, and that's going to be the left side Phoenix. You can't fight this 4v5 and try to find that defense with this amount of a lead. Now the Titans turn their eyes over towards the mid Phoenix Mifflin. They're playing a little nice here, but it's going to start the fight up. Fine OK, locked up. Darvik Pillars out, but it's not going to be enough to find the damage necessary. Bat Out of Hell is scooping damage across 3. Whirlwind is half health, as well as Fine and Mike. Back to the fountain they go. The Phoenix in mid goes down. The Titan is now the target, and the Titans are going to be running it down. They're doing the damage that is necessary, and there's not enough of a defense here from the Dragons. They're going to find the Scarab's Blessing. Layers looking for the damage. Mike finally killed off, and the Titan will go down here. The Titans win this set and go to the finals.
The Jade Dragons look dominant in their one win, but the Tartarus Titans look dominant everywhere else, 3-1, and in a convincing manner.
And you know what? I'll do it one better. They're going to Worlds.
Woo!
They're just straight up stamped their ticket where they need to go. I'm sure they're happy about that.
It seems like it was expected, right? Were you looking at the camera, man?
Paul looks up like, yeah, so why didn't we do that in 3?
Yeah. Well,
why did we lose that game, huh?
4 games, guys? They're going to have a serious conversation about that one later. The Tartarus Titans, man, this team, we knew it coming into this weekend that they were going to be the ones to keep your eyes on. But for a moment there, I saw weakness. For just 1 second, we saw that the Tartarus Titans can bleed. And then they put a Band-Aid on and they stopped bleeding.
It was like a knee scrape. Yeah, they put the Band-Aid on. They're perfectly fine at this point. Don't seem too worried about their competition there. They win this set. They take out the Dragons, and they get to go to Worlds. The Titans very happy after this set. We'll break that down and, of course, move on to set number 2 right after this.
Game 4 done, we know at least one team going to the SMITE World Championships held January 6th through 9th, the entirety of the hi-rez showcase. It's not just going to be the World Championships happening during that time. We've got all kinds of crazy and fun events going on. There's a community clash tournament. There's going to be a Slash map developer show match. So if you've been curious about Slash, which I'll be honest, I've been curious as to how Slash is going to pan out. Make sure that you tune in then. Then, obviously, we're going to have all the cool stuff, Content Creator Cup going on, a Season 9 map showcase and show match later on during the event. So make sure that you're tuning in January 6th through 9th here on the channel, watching then for the SWC showcase, the World Championships, and all that fun, because now, after Game 4 aggro, we have crowned our first team not just going to Worlds, but going to the semifinals in Worlds. And what a way to do it with a double blank on the Jade Dragons.
Look, this set started with the Jade Dragons looking like they had the new tech figured out, that they knew what was going on in the meta, and the Tartarus Titans adjusted unbelievably quickly. And if this team didn't scare you before that, hey, maybe they're only good at this one meta, they can only play this style of game, their adjustment and how well they played these last two games should absolutely terrify you, because this team looks near unstoppable. I just feel like the way that they pick and ban, they're so quick to adjust, they're so difficult to pick and ban against, and then their actual on-field execution is just as good, if not better, than all of those things that I was just talking about when it comes to the out-of-game stuff. So it's a really, really difficult team to beat just by way of the way that they prepare and get ready to play you.
Yeah, we were going into game number 1. We looked at the drafts the Titans brought out and went, wow, this looks like a Tartarus Titans draft. Look at the Jade Dragons, go, wow, that looks like what was dominating the day before, and it did so in game number 1. And as you highlight here, the Tartarus Titans, they just adjust quicker than probably any other team in the league could have in compositions like this, and oddly enough, they're doing it with the same style of picks that they've been playing all year. They didn't magically just throw in a bunch of new meta gods. They stuck with what's worked with them this whole time through.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, they clearly can adjust to you, but teams have to learn how to adjust to them and take them off some of these comfort picks. But it just becomes too difficult to do so because, you know, for Tiamat, for example, I don't think Tiamat is that good right now. I think Paul is just that good, that he can make this god look completely dominant and still destroy you like he did in this set. 4-0-4 for him in this one, but layers on the Camazotz looked really good. I think the Jade Dragons also just got a little tripped up on what they needed to be prioritizing. I mean, we talked a lot about that Game 3 draft and where I think it went wrong. In Game 4, you know, this Ganesh top pick, Aurora looked really good on it and was stopping a lot of what they wanted to do. But the draft that the Titans had and the draft that Jade Dragons had, these are not functionally different to what we saw at group stages. And Ganesh wasn't exactly great then on those types of team compositions or against those types of team compositions. And so the Ganesh pick just didn't work, in my opinion, because it didn't go hand in hand with what has made it good over these last few games, which is either going with or against these immobile mages.
And maybe we found one of the more annoying picks to kind of deal with here was that Khepri. Proved to be a huge problem with them, and it's continued to be a huge pick for Aurora.
Yep.
We've got him standing by for our post-game interview with Gormine, so we'll throw it right over to them.
That's right. I got Aurora standing by with me. And Aurora, I'm going to start this one pretty much at the very beginning. What goes wrong in Game 1 to cause you guys to slip up?
We came in with a draft that we wanted, and they just played better than us in the first game, and then we were just able to adjust and do well from there.
And the adjustment's well fitted. You won 3 in a row. In fact, the 2 you won so hard that they didn't get a single kill on the board for 2 games. Did you expect anything like that coming into today?
I don't know. It's just I don't expect anything. I just expect to play and do my best, and that's literally what I do.
I would argue that you did your best. The last question I have for you guys is, you're going to Worlds now. You know that for sure. You guaranteed trip. How does that feel?
Feels really good, and it also feels good that we were able to come back after such a loss in Game 1, because I know that's the whole narrative behind our team is we can't bounce back, but again, we did it, so I'm happy that we were able to bring it back after that first game.
You get the bounce back after Game 1. You get 2 deathless games in a row, which is ridiculous in and of itself, and you get to go to Worlds. Feels like a good day to be a Titans fan. Maybe even better if you're a Titans player. Thanks for your time, man. Of course, congratulations on your win. We'll send it back to the desk.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think played his best may be an understatement here for the Tartarus Titans. A hell of a performance here in Games 3 and 4 to double blank the Jade Dragons after nearly getting blanked themselves in Game number 1. A hard-fought battle in game number 2. At the end of the day, it is the Tartarus Titans winning it out. They'll be moving on to our finals that will take place tomorrow. But we still have one more game to go. Yeah, we're not done with the Smite action yet. We got the Atlantis Leviathans and the Camelot Kings coming up immediately after this, and that one is also sure to be a Sparks flying set.
Yeah, very excited because those two teams are playing totally different things than what we saw the Jade Dragons playing, and a little bit more similar to that Tartarus Titan style. So maybe the meta hasn't changed as much as we thought. Really exciting what we're going to see out of those two teams. The more I think about this set, though, J-Mac, like, I've been doing this a long time. Like,
yeah.
I've casted a lot of Smite. I don't know if I've ever seen a best of 5 start off with one team dropping 1 kill, only dying once, and then not getting a kill in back-to-back games to lose a best of 5. I don't know if I've ever seen that, and I think that speaks a lot to how well the Titans are playing.
I mean, I was just talking with you kind of like before, kind of in between games. We've been seeing a lot more blanks happening this season.
Yeah.
We've rarely seen more than like 1 a set. We're getting a couple a weekend, but we get 2 in one game, almost 3 in one game. We're going to cut it to a quick break, though. We'll come back for our second set of the day shortly after.